Chapter 1349, Black Flame and Beast Emperor. Chapter 1349, Black Flame and Beast Emperor. Beast Emperor. Abandoned Wave grew ecstatic as the towering figure appeared before him. As per usual, Beast Emperor wore a black cloak and bandages that covered his entire body. However, Beast Emperor's aura and radiating evil energy were much stronger than the last time Abandoned Wave had met the man. Despite the lack of malice, Abandoned Wave couldn't help but feel an indescribable fear as he stared at Beast Emperor's back. Of course, he was also relieved. Now that Beast Emperor had arrived, he was safe from sure foe. This is Beast Emperor? Meanwhile, Flame Blood, who stood beside Abandoned Wave, stared at the man before them with a dumbfounded look. Although Abandoned Wave had told him that Beast Emperor was strong, Flame Blood hadn't realized just how strong. The man's aura was on par with that of a great lord. The instant Beast Emperor had arrived, he had felt his body grow heavy. This was the first time he met a player that didn't feel like a human, but some kind of terrifying creature. Beast Emperor's arrival had also halted Shifeng's steps. With such dense and powerful evil energy surrounding him, is he an evil god envoy? The cloaked man shocked Shifeng. The instant Beast Emperor had appeared, the evil energy he exuded tainted the surrounding area. If normal players spent too much time in this pollution, they would undoubtedly become demonkin. Even Great Lord-ranked evil beasts and evil demons could only pollute an area of 20 to 30 yards, yet Beast Emperor polluted a radius of over 50 yards. With the evil god's blessing, his evil energy was also denser than normal. If evil beasts and evil demons' evil energy were akin to air, then the Beast Emperor's evil energy was like liquid. Zero Wings Guild Leader Black Flame? Beast Emperor asked Shifeng in a gravelly voice. Sure enough, you're as strong as the rumors say. No wonder those old fellows are talking about you. Let me introduce myself. I'm called Beast Emperor. I am also the apostle that activated the evil god's temple in Starmoon Kingdom. May I know if Guild Leader Black Flame would be so kind as to pardon my two friends? I can assure you that the beasts and demons will not bother Stone Forest Town again. If I let them go, those evil beasts and evil demons will leave Stone Forest Town alone? Is this some kind of humble threat? Shifeng asked. You can think of it that way, Beast Emperor acknowledged. In his opinion, God's domain had fewer threats to offer as time went on. A measly kingdom's #1 guild was not one of them. Abandoned Wave was one of the basic evil god apostles under him. Abandoned Wave could only control a maximum of 600,000 evil beasts, which couldn't be more than 30 levels higher than his own. The strongest evil beast he could control was only Tier 4 lower rank, and he could only control up to 10 at a time. As for evil demons, Abandoned Wave could only control a maximum of 5,000, and they could not be more than 20 levels higher than him. The strongest evil demon Abandoned Wave could control was only Tier 3 middle rank, and his maximum was 20 at a time. If Abandoned Wave could push Zero Wing to the brink of destruction with a half-baked army, what could an evil god envoy such as himself accomplish? If I say no? Shifeng asked, smiling. He then vanished. You're rejecting my goodwill? Beast Emperor's gaze turned frosty when he heard Shifeng's reply. Immediately, he searched his surroundings for the enemy player. As if Abandoned Wave and Flame Blood faced a powerful foe, one focused on their surroundings while the other activated Truth Shield to protect himself. However, before any of the three could react, Shifeng appeared beside Abandoned Wave, turning both Abyssal Blade and Killing Ray against the man. Shifeng could easily cross 30 yards with a few steps. By the time Abandoned Wave realized what was happening and attempted to use Vanish, the seemingly slow swords had passed through his body. Only after he had been hit did his body begin to disappear. However, the two attacks had devoured over 35,000 HP, dropping it into the red. He had nearly been thrown over the river Styx. How are his reactions so fast? Flame Blood was stupefied. Shifeng's slashes were not indefensible. Only Shifeng's reaction speed was simply too quick. He had executed the two slashes as if he had moved on instinct. The instant Abandoned Wave disappeared, Shifeng retrieved a dark blue crystal ball from his bag and shattered it. No. You can't do that. From stealth, Abandoned Wave practically screamed when he saw the shattered crystal ball. The crystal ball Shifeng had shattered was a mobile jail specifically designed to capture dark and red players. If a dark or red player had less than 10% of their HP, the capture would be successful. Mobile jails had the same effects as jails in NPC cities. This wasn't an item that ordinary players could afford. The War God's Temple sold mobile jails that could hold a single player for 50 gold each. Mobile jails that could hold up to 10 players cost 300 gold. Even wealthy players wouldn't purchase such an expensive tool without a specific reason. Although Abandoned Wave had considered using a skill to resist capture, once the mobile jail activated, it would capture any player within 15 yards that fit the requirements and stop them from using skills or tools. They wouldn't even be able to move. Not even an invulnerable state could save them. In the blink of an eye, a black hole devoured Abandoned Wave, and he vanished as if he had never existed. Meanwhile, the crystal ball Shifeng had shattered had recovered, but instead of dark blue the crystal ball was now black. Black flame. You bastard. Beast Emperor glared at Shifeng, evil energy overflowing from his body. His aura also began to increase. Release him now. Otherwise, don't even think of leaving this place alive. Although he was an evil god envoy, someone who enjoyed a high position in the evil god's temple, he was only granted 5 apostles. Even if one of his apostles died, he wouldn't get another. Hence, he was extremely careful when selecting apostles. After all, players without enough strength and resources weren't likely to be of much help. Although Abandoned Wave had lost the Blackwater Corporation's support, he had already given Abandoned Wave one of his 5 apostle slots. Losing Abandoned Wave was the equivalent of losing 600,000 evil beasts and 5,000 evil demons. Leave here alive? Shifeng turned to Beast Emperor. Chuckling, he said, "Are you joking? Or do you think I can't tell that you're just a mirror image?" You saw through it? Beast Emperor was stunned. He did not have any skills that allowed long-distance teleportation, but he could dispatch a mirror image, sending it to command his own army and that of his apostles. Not only did this skill guarantee his safety, but it also allowed him to keep his subordinates in check. Although his mirror image was invulnerable, it couldn't attack either. The mirror image was only a replica that lasted 30 minutes. A doppelganger? Flame Blood looked at Beast Emperor in confusion. Both Beast Emperor's aura and evil energy far exceeded Abandoned Wave's. At the end of the day, a doppelganger was only a doppelganger. Everyone knew that, although they looked like the real deal, doppelgangers didn't have the aura of the original player. Yet, no matter how he looked at Beast Emperor, the man should be real. But what Beast Emperor and Flame Blood didn't know was that Shifeng had activated omniscient eyes. He could see the truth of everything within 100 yards of himself. The instant Beast Emperor had appeared, Shifeng had activated omniscient eyes to avoid an ambush. After all, if one enemy appeared suddenly, others were likely nearby. If Beast Emperor really wore a black cloak, though even omniscient eyes wouldn't reveal his identity. However, as this Beast Emperor was only a mirror image, the black cloak could only hide his appearance. It did nothing to hide the mirror image's data from omniscient eyes. Moreover, as the mirror image was invulnerable, it couldn't attack. It was similar to his divine steps. Despite his ruse failing, Beast Emperor showed no signs of panic or worry. On the contrary, he laughed and said, as expected of the player the secret pavilion dubbed the Sword King. Ordinary peak experts are no match for your strength and insight. However, did you think I've spent so much time talking to you just for fun? As soon as Beast Emperor had said so, a black figure descended from above. The figure hovered above Beast Emperor as it gazed down at Shifeng. Evil Demon, Dark Creature, Grand Lord. Level 70. HP 35, 000, 000/35, 000, 000. Chapter 1350, Full-Powered Assault. As the evil demon appeared, the area's atmosphere changed. Dense evil energy polluted the area, and shadows clustered around the evil demon. However, the more frightening aspect was the evil demon's aura. Even an expert like Flame Blood could not help but shudder, his movements becoming sluggish. So, this is a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon? Flame Blood was both shocked and afraid as he stared at the hovering evil demon. His fear wasn't due to the demon's aura. Rather, the evil demon before him felt almost human. Its condescending gaze and sneer made it look like a player in an evil demon's skin. Flame Blood had never realized that there was such a massive difference between a Great Lord and a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon. To upgrade an evil demon to the Great Lord rank, Abandoned Wave had to devour many players' souls. Of course, the demon had to have enough potential to evolve. Otherwise, absorbing souls would only increase its level, not its tier. Every time an evil demon was promoted, it would require several times more souls to reach the next rank. One could just imagine how difficult it was to produce a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon. Yet, Beast Emperor intended to use such a creature to lead the way. If they had had the help of a Grand Lord during their siege against Stone Forest Town, the battle might have ended in their favor. Black Flame, I have given you your one chance. Since you've refused, I'll show you what it feels like for a demon to devour your soul. Beast Emperor smirked at Shifeng. If an expert like you turns into an evil demon, I'm sure it will have a lot of potential. Peak experts' corpses were very valuable to Evil God's Temple players. Such corpses had a much greater chance of becoming evil demons with high growth potential. The evil demon created would have a better chance of becoming a high-tiered creature. As Beast Emperor finished speaking, the evil demon above him vanished as it dashed towards Shifeng with lightning speed. In the blink of an eye, the evil demon arrived before its target, slashing at Shifeng's head with claws wrapped in dark gray fog. However, mid-swing the evil demon abruptly changed its attack trajectory, creating a silver arc that split away from the gray fog and moved towards Shifeng's neck. Meanwhile, the gray fog retained its form as it continued towards Shifeng's head. Rapid switch. Shifeng could not help his surprise. He hadn't expected the evil demon to have grasped such a superb technique. Moreover, the transition was so smooth and sudden that even a Void Realm expert like himself had failed to detect warning signs. It was as if the demon's cells had altered from attacking his head to swiping at his neck. In this crucial moment, one of Shifeng's blades, which he had employed to counter the fog-shrouded claws, changed directions. While the abyssal blade continued to block the descending claws of gray fog, Killing Ray turned to block the evil demon's real claws. Boom. Boom. As the blades and claws met, the collision scattered dazzling sparks. The ground beneath Shifeng's feet sunk slightly. The impact then threw Shifeng and he landed over 20 yards away. He instantly lost over 10,000 HP. Is this a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon's strength? When Shifeng struck the ground, both of his hands were numb. His blades vibrated, releasing a low hum. Sure enough, its strength and speed far exceed an ordinary Grand Lord. If not for his quick reaction and diverting Killing Ray, he would have likely died. Even so, since he had pulled Killing Ray away from his parry, he hadn't been able to mitigate the damage completely, causing him to lose 1/6 of his total HP. At this rate, even if he blocked every one of the demon's attacks, he would only last 6 attacks. He had only been saved due to his Tier 2 Sword Master class, one of the 10 Great Saint classes, and his excellent equipment. If a Tier 2 metric tons of the same level had received that last attack, they'd most likely lose a minimum of 20,000 HP. He's not dead. Beast Emperor was momentarily stunned when he saw Shifeng stand up with most of his HP intact. He knew just how powerful a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon was. Even the current strongest MT in God's domain would die instantly if they didn't activate a life-saving skill in time. Upon reaching the Grand Lord rank, evil demons' combat standards underwent a qualitative transformation. Players had no hope against these Grand Lords' transition speed. After factoring in the Grand Lord's frightening, destructive power, any player that attempted to solo such a creature would die instantly. He even blocked that attack. Sure enough, Black Flame's strength has improved significantly yet again. Flame Blood was also surprised to see Shifeng so lively. Even against a Great Lord-ranked evil demon of the same level, an MT would be forced to activate a life-saving skill to survive, not to mention against the level 70 Grand Lord. If not for the NPC guards and various magic arrays, Zero Wing would have been easily annihilated during the siege. Yet even without any support, Shifeng blocked the Grand Lord's attack. This was simply inconceivable. Sure enough, you are quite impressive. But how many attacks do you think you can block? Although Shifeng had surprised Beast Emperor, the situation hadn't changed. As he said so, the evil demon darted forward once more. This time, the gray fog around its claws transformed into a dark gray greatsword. It brandished the weapon at Shifeng, sending 5 streaks of gray light towards the swordsman's blind spots. Just as the 5 streaks of gray light were about to devour Shifeng, golden dragon scales and divine runes began to envelop his body. His aura transformed as well, resembling that of a prehistoric beast. A stream of blue energy flowed from Killing Ray and into Shifeng's palm. Arcs of blue electricity danced across his body. Suddenly, Shifeng looked like a god that had descended to the mortal world. Heavenly Dragon's Power. Tier 2 Blade Liberation. This was the first time Shifeng had used twofold Berserk after completing his Tier 2 promotion. Even against the King of Darkness, Shifeng had only used Heavenly Dragon's Power. However, against the Grand Lord-ranked evil demon, Shifeng did not dare to be careless, as even the slightest mistake could end his life. Following which, Shifeng lightly swung Killing Ray towards the evil demon. Shadow Blade. Immediately, 1 streak of blue light and 9 streaks of black light sliced at the evil demon. The instant Shifeng's sacred sword and the evil demon's greatsword collided, the ground they stood on shattered from the resulting impact. Even Flame Blood, who stood 30 yards away, nearly lost his footing. The 5 streaks of gray light were repelled back, carving several long grooves into the dirt. After repelling the evil demon's attacks, all 10 of Shifeng's attacks landed. The streaks of light easily bit into the evil demon's steel-like body, green blood spewing from its wounds as the impact threw the creature over a dozen yards backward. At the same time, the evil demon's HP plummeted. -161,267. -323,497. -160,916. Since Killing Ray dealt double damage against dark creatures, the evil demon's HP dropped by over 2 million in the blink of an eye. Chapter 1351, Monster-like Player. Chapter 1351, Monster-like Player. As the dust settled, it revealed the 3-meter-tall evil demon half kneeling on the ground. Cracks broke the dirt for over a dozen yards beneath the demon. What? Flame Blood's eyes nearly fell from his sockets when he saw the injured evil demon. A Tier 3 NPC would barely be a match for a Great Lord-ranked evil demon, yet Shifeng had sent the creature flying. Beside Flame Blood, Beast Emperor stared at the demon with a solemn expression. He found it inconceivable that Shifeng could contest and surpass a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon's strength. You heal the evil demon. I'll have it protect you. Black Flame's berserk skill won't last long. Once it ends, he will die. Beast Emperor roared at Flame Blood. He had lost his previously complacent expression. We just have to buy enough time for the reinforcements I've sent to arrive. Although he thought that it was almost impossible for Shifeng to kill the demon, he instructed Flame Blood to heal the creature as a precaution. Even if Shifeng could suppress the evil demon, he wouldn't kill it. He had only ordered the fastest Great Lord-ranked evil demon to separate from the main contingent to save Abandoned Wave. It would take some time before the rest of his forces arrived. Once the follow-up forces arrived, Shifeng would lose any hope of escape or survival. Flame Blood nodded and immediately went into action. First, he cast Recover on the evil demon, healing it for over 2,300 HP every 5 seconds. He followed up with a Truth Shield, which could absorb over -11,000 damage. Although these spells were almost negligible compared to the evil demon's HP, the Truth Shield and Recover would heal the creature's injuries. At the very least, it would be able to fight at peak condition. Flame Blood began to chant an incantation. As Heaven's Burial's best cleric, Flame Blood had double cast right off the bat. He had chosen to cast the Tier 1 spell, Life Recovery, and the Tier 0 spell, Healing Light. Not only was Flame Blood's chanting very fast, but he was also accurate. He was only slightly less efficient than Violet Cloud. Of course, there was a massive gap between his brain activity and hers. Shifeng didn't sit idly by while Flame Blood healed the evil demon. Without hesitation, he activated the Tier 2 taboo skill, Instant Strike, vanishing and reappearing before the demon in an instant. Sword's Orbit. Suddenly, a glittering galaxy formed around Shifeng's body. Dazzling stars bombarded the evil demon, one after another. Both Flame Blood and Beast Emperor were shocked. Despite the stars appearing slow, in reality, they moved so quickly that they could barely react to the attacks. The stars they saw were simply residual images their brains had created. Fortunately, the evil demon possessed godlike reaction speed. With a physique that surpassed that of ordinary players, it reacted immediately and blocked the incoming attacks with its claws. However, as Shifeng had activated twofold Berserk and Instant Strike, both his strength and attack speed exceeded the evil demon's. The Grand Lord couldn't keep up. The brilliant stars continued to bombard the monster, each collision ripping pain screams from the evil demon's throat. The evil demon's agonizing screams echoed across the grassland, causing all who heard it to shudder. If other players saw this, they'd likely confuse Shifeng for the monster, while assuming that the evil demon was some innocent player. Each star that penetrated the evil demon's body dealt devastating damage. -431,571. -435,197. -871,054. For a moment, Flame Blood had even forgotten to chant his spells as he stared at the screaming demon with a dumbfounded expression. Is he a monster? Flame Blood had intended to mitigate some of Shifeng's damage with his heals, but after seeing the swordsman's devastating power, he realized that his efforts would be utterly futile. Only now did Flame Blood understand why Shifeng hadn't prioritized killing him, a healer. It wasn't because Shifeng didn't want to kill him. Rather, he didn't need to. Since he was negligible, the swordsman didn't need to waste time on him. After all, Berserk skills' durations were extremely limited. The evil demon's HP bar continued to plummet. Every hit Shifeng landed reduced it by 1%, 2% with a critical hit. The demon's HP rapidly decreased from 93%, 90%, 80%, 70%. By the time Instant Strike's 3-second duration ended, the evil demon had only 64% HP remaining. However, as soon as Instant Strike's effects wore out, Shifeng's attack speed and damage dramatically decreased. Seeing this, Beast Emperor released a sigh of relief. Had Shifeng continued dealing such horrific damage, the evil demon would have lost all of its 35 million HP and died in less than 20 seconds. Now that Shifeng's attack speed had decreased, the evil demon could finally keep up with the attacks, blocking them. In fact, the demon launched powerful counter-attacks with the dark fog it had summoned, forcing Shifeng to dodge and waste time. It was only a matter of time before Shifeng's berserk skill ended. Sure enough, one person's strength isn't enough, Shifeng thought as he was forced into a corner. The Grand Lord-ranked evil demon's superb physique was even more powerful than a Tier 3 player's. Players of the same tier might have some difficulty blocking his slashes, but to the evil demon, doing so wasn't difficult in the least. Reacting quickly, Shifeng retrieved 2 Summon Guard scrolls from his bag. Although he was strong enough to suppress a Grand Lord for a short time, whether it was an evil demon or a normal monster, players had one disadvantage: HP. This was why it was so difficult to solo monsters of the same or a higher tier as players progressed in the game. When Shifeng finished chanting, 2 golden magic arrays appeared beside him. Kite and Anna emerged from the arrays. Although it hadn't been long since Shifeng last saw his personal guards, the 2 NPCs had leveled up considerably. After completing his Tier 2 promotion quest and returning to White River City, Shifeng hadn't immediately resummoned his personal guards. Instead, he left them in the Dark Canyon to continue leveling. Compared to the time flow in God's domain, time passed 5 times faster in the Dark Canyon. Moreover, the canyon's environment was far more suitable for training. The last time Shifeng had seen Kite, the NPC was level 70. Now, Kite had reached level 74. As for Anna, she was already level 75. She was undoubtedly the highest level personal guard in the game right now. The instant these 2 NPCs appeared, Kite swung his greatsword down. Countless wind blades surrounded the evil demon, sealing its movements completely. As for Anna, she waved her staff and chanted an incantation, summoning forth 10 level 75, Lord-ranked Rock Guardians and a Great Lord-ranked Golden Giant. Under Anna's control, the Rock Guardians positioned themselves to form a magic array, lowering the evil demon's basic attributes by 15%. Unless one of the Rock Guardians died, the array would remain active. Without wasting time, Shifeng activated Phantom Kill and 9 Dragon Slash. At the moment, his doppelganger's attributes were even higher than Kite's. Each Abyssal Blade Phantom also dealt as much damage as the Lord-ranked Rock Guardians. With his doppelganger and Kite's support, Shifeng overwhelmed the evil demon. Although Kite's and Anna's damage output was no match for Shifeng's individually, when combined they dealt even more damage than their master. Time passed gradually. Although Shifeng's berserk skills were running out, the evil demon's HP decreased at a rate visible to the naked eye. 60%, 45%, 30%. When the evil demon's HP fell below 20%, it finally went berserk as it shrank and its skin turned crimson. Its entire body began to release more gray fog. Evil Energy Outbreak was a desperate skill that only Grand Lord-ranked demons and above could use. When activated, the skill would increase the user's strength, movement speed and attack speed by 30% and physique by 15%. However, the skill was a double-edged sword that would also decrease the user's maximum HP by 30%. Only 2 seconds remained of Shifeng's 24-second twofold berserk state. His aura had already begun to weaken. As if it had realized that Shifeng couldn't hold out much longer, the evil demon's lips curled up as it formed a sharp spear with the gray fog surrounding its body. With the slightest movement, the spearhead sliced space itself and created a spatial tear. The evil demon then threw the weapon at Shifeng. As the spear flew through the air towards Shifeng, a loud boom shook the area. Responding quickly, Anna directed the golden giant to block the attack. Surprisingly, however, the dark gray spear passed through the giant without causing any harm. As the spear was about to find its target, Shifeng instinctively used divine steps, summoning 10 invulnerable doppelgangers around the evil demon, switching positions with one of these doppelgangers. Instinctively, Shifeng turned his blades on the evil demon. Flame burst. Divine providence. At this time, his phantom kill doppelganger activated flame burst and attacked the evil demon in tandem. Although the evil demon responded very quickly, Shifeng switched positions with another doppelganger after every slash, not giving the demon a chance to block his attacks. By the time Shifeng landed his 15th hit, his sword's scorching flames had devoured the demon's last strand of HP. When the Grand Lord collapsed, it transformed into innumerable light particles like shattered glass and disappeared. Shifeng's experience bar rose madly, his level instantly increasing from 53 to 54. He had earned even more EXP from killing the evil demon than from soloing an archaic species. It had given him nearly as much EXP as a level 70 mythic monster. Shifeng was astonished. If he could kill a few more of these evil demons, his level would skyrocket. HM? This is an evil god crystal? As the evil demon disappeared, the gray fog condensed to a single point. The gray fog then formed a crimson crystal that hovered quietly in the air, releasing an intensely mighty aura. Chapter 1352, Auction House Design. Chapter 1352, Auction House Design. It died. Flame blood froze when he saw the evil demon inside the magic array disappear. Even a great lord-ranked evil demon of the same level would require a team of hundreds of elite players, led by dozens of experts, to take down. They had learned this lesson during their experiments in the Frozen Scar. In the end, the Great Lord had more than 2/3 of its HP remaining after wiping out the entire elite team. Yet, Shifeng killed a level 70 Grand Lord-ranked evil demon by himself. Beast Emperor wore an indescribably grim expression. Not only had Abandoned Wave been captured, but he had also lost a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon. It had taken a lot of effort to nurture 5 evil demons. Grand Lord-ranked evil demons were not easy to produce. It all depended on an evil demon's potential. He had killed many peak experts to obtain 5 evil demons capable of reaching the Great Lord rank. After his momentary rage, the Crimson Crystal, which had formed after the evil demon's death, drew Beast Emperor's attention. How is this possible? How could a mere Grand Lord possibly drop an evil god crystal? Shock, excitement, and greed flashed in Beast Emperor's eyes as he stared at the crystal. It was highly unlikely that players outside of the Evil God's Temple would understand how valuable the item was. However, to Evil God's Temple players, the Evil God Crystal was an absolute treasure. It was even too valuable to trade for a mythic-ranked evil demon. Shifeng grabbed the Evil God Crystal and shoved it in his bag before Beast Emperor could get a closer look. His eyes became bloodshot with fury as he wanted nothing more than to kill Shifeng with his own hands. Unfortunately, he was only here as a mirror image. He could not touch Shifeng. Beast Emperor quickly calmed himself. Turning to the somewhat feeble Shifeng, he smiled and praised, "Guild Leader Black Flame, you're truly capable. Even the strongest evil demon under my command wouldn't be a match for you. As expected of Starmoon Kingdom's #1 expert." What? Trying to persuade me with sweet words after failing with brute force? Shifeng sneered as he glanced at Beast Emperor. Although he suffered a weakened state, decreasing his attributes by 70%, he was easily strong enough to kill Flame Blood and drag Abandoned Wave back to the War God's Temple. He knew that an evil god envoy could only create a limited number of evil god apostles. Losing even one apostle would undoubtedly weaken Beast Emperor. Beast Emperor's expression darkened, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. He was the Evil God's Temple's sole evil god envoy. He was fated to become an overlord, establishing the evil god's empire in God's domain, yet a guild leader from a measly kingdom stood before him, ridiculing his failure. If only he were here physically, he would give Shifeng a taste of despair. "Black Flame, let's not waste time talking. Why don't we make a trade?" Beast Emperor said after suppressing his rage. "You'll gain at most some merit points for handing an evil god apostle over to the War God's Temple, but I can offer your guild resources others dream of and access to dark cities. Zero Wing desperately needs these. The Evil God's Temple was one of God's domain's strongest dark forces. It had branches throughout numerous kingdoms and empires. He couldn't help Zero Wing gain access to every NPC Dark City, but getting access to a few shouldn't be a problem. This was also why Heaven's Burial was willing to help Abandoned Wave gather so many evil beasts and evil demons in such a short time. Sure, I might get some measly merit points for handing over an evil god apostle, but ridding God's domain of an apostle is just as good, Shifeng said, chuckling. Although he was interested in access to multiple dark cities, getting rid of an evil god apostle that had been persistent in picking fights was a better option. If not for the Adventurers Association's assistance in Stone Forest Town, Zero Wing might have failed to protect it. Shifeng would have been forced to accept mutual destruction, using a method to prevent anyone from claiming the town. Beast Emperor nearly popped a vein when he heard Shifeng's refusal. Taking a deep breath, he tried again. How about this? I have an auction house design in my possession. I also have a secret land key that can open the secret land door, allowing you to send 1,000 players through at a time. Aside from the resources the secret land has to offer, you can gain far more magic crystals there than in the Stoneclaw Mountains. I will also help Zero Wing gain access to 5 dark cities. In return, you just need to hand over the mobile jail and the Crimson Crystal. The auction house design might not be useful for a basic town, but it was a different story for Stone Forest Town. Once a player town had an auction house, it would lure more players, and the ruling guild would make a profit from the handling fees. Of course, the secret land key was obviously quite valuable. If a guild periodically harvested the resources from the secret land, it wouldn't need to fight other guilds for resources. With these items, Zero Wing wouldn't need much time to improve by leaps and bounds. A measly 10 or 20,000 War God's Temple merit points couldn't compare to these benefits. Beast Emperor's offer stunned Shifeng for a moment. The auction house design was extremely rare in God's domain. It was any less rare than the teleportation magic array design. However, while the teleportation magic array design could be used multiple times, the auction house design was a one-time use item. He had never expected Beast Emperor to offer up such an item. The secret land key was also extremely valuable. It was only slightly less valuable than mineral veins that produced magic crystals. Shifeng had to admit that Beast Emperor's offer was incredibly tempting. Meanwhile, Flame Blood, who overheard the offer, was also dumbfounded. Heaven's Burial dreamed of obtaining both items, especially the secret land key. He would never have dreamed that Beast Emperor would offer such items and access to 5 dark cities in exchange for Abandoned Wave and the Crimson Crystal. Not even super guilds would refuse such an offer. How tempting. But I still refuse. Shifeng responded, smiling. I'm not in the habit of breeding troublemakers. If an evil god apostle had only attacked his town by chance, he might consider letting them go. However, the apostle in his hands had intentionally picked a fight. Truth be told, even if he released this troublemaking apostle, he wouldn't be afraid for his future. After all, once Zero Wing reinforced its foundations, its development speed would only continue to increase. Furthermore, an evil god apostle required a large amount of resources to create evil beasts and evil demons. If Starmoon Kingdom's various large guilds were cautious, creating more underlings wouldn't be easy. However, he had no interest in fighting siege wars for no good reason. Moreover, he still had plenty of things he needed to attend to. He did not have enough time to waste in Starmoon Kingdom. Again, Beast Emperor was stunned. However, he demanded in a chilly voice, "Do you really intend to fight me to the bitter end?" Chapter 1353, Crazy Black Flame. Chapter 1353, Crazy Black Flame. Beast Emperor's deep voice echoed throughout the grassy plains. The surrounding temperature dropped. Flame Blood couldn't help but shudder. This Beast Emperor was only a mirror image. It didn't have any offensive ability. Beast Emperor wasn't even backed by a superpower. However, no guild would dare to underestimate his strength. The various superpowers were no exception. Although Flame Blood didn't know how much power Beast Emperor truly wielded, he had learned that Beast Emperor still had 2 other evil god apostles. They had been apostles much longer than Abandoned Wave and had considerably powerful backers. Unlike Abandoned Wave, the other 2 apostles operated in secret in other kingdoms. They weren't like Abandoned Wave, acting boldly in the open in Starmoon Kingdom. Abandoned Wave's actions were part of the reason he had gathered such a large army of evil beasts and evil demons so quickly. After a moment of silence, Shifeng shook his head and laughed. Do you really believe that I'm afraid of your evil beasts and evil demons? Shi Feng asked calmly. He didn't know much about the evil god's temple, but he knew that evil beasts and evil demons weren't easy to produce. Unlike evil beasts, evil demons couldn't be summoned. Evil beasts could only travel on foot as well. This was also why evil god's temple players paid more attention to evil demons. It was practically impossible for the evil god's temple to amass another army of that size with Abandoned Wave's army annihilated and the resources around Star Moon City mostly exhausted. If it were possible to create evil beasts and evil demons without limit, evil god's temple players would have long since become invincible. Of course, Beast Emperor might summon his own evil demons against Stone Forest Town, but with how rare they were, sending an army of demons to capture the town would be a waste. When Flame Blood heard Shi Feng's reply, he thought he had heard wrong for a moment. Has Black Flame lost his mind? Flame Blood stared at Shi Feng incredulously. He simply could not figure out what was going through Shi Feng's mind. Not only had Shi Feng refused a profitable business proposition, but he had also gone out of his way to provoke someone who shouldn't be pushed. He was a lunatic. Good. Very good. I had thought you were an intelligent man, Black Flame, but it would seem that you're just a frog in a well with no idea of how vast heaven and earth are. Beast Emperor's expression darkened as several veins popped across his forehead. Since you want war, I'll give it to you. Saying so, Beast Emperor disappeared, his voice echoing across the grassy plains for a long time. He left. Flame Blood was stupefied. He had assumed that Beast Emperor had been trying to buy time while waiting for his forces to arrive. However, it would seem he had been wrong. What Flame Blood did not know was that, although Beast Emperor had considered buying time, he had dispelled the thought after Shi Feng had summoned Kite and Anna. After all, of the evil demons he had sent to fetch Abandoned Wave and Flame Blood, only 3 Great Lords remained. If those Great Lords had worked together with the demon that had died, they could suppress Shi Feng and wear him down until he died. Unfortunately, now that the Grand Lord was dead, he knew that he had lost his chance of defeating Shi Feng with the 2 personal guards by his side. The 10 Rock Guardians' magic array alone could suppress his 3 Great Lord-ranked evil demons. Shi Feng could even kill Flame Blood before his eyes. If Zero Wing had sent reinforcements, they might even claim the Great Lord's lives. Hence, there was no reason to linger. While Flame Blood was dazed, Kite appeared before him, the NPC's greatsword forming a blue arc as it sliced the cleric's throat. Before Flame Blood had realized what had happened, he died and dropped a piece of equipment. Start a war. Shi Feng could not help but chuckle as he stared at the Beast Emperor's previous location. He then picked up the equipment Flame Blood had dropped before returning to Stone Forest Town. In reality, Shi Feng looked forward to Beast Emperor's war. He had already activated Star Moon Kingdom's epic ranked main storyline quest and was required to extract the evil god's temple from the kingdom. Since Beast Emperor was the evil god envoy that had activated the evil god's temple in Star Moon Kingdom, their fight was only a matter of time. Rather than let the evil god's temple quietly develop in Star Moon Kingdom, it was more beneficial to incite Beast Emperor to increase the temple's activity in the kingdom. This way he could locate the evil god's temple's base of operations faster and complete his quest. Moreover, it was thanks to Beast Emperor that he had thought of a plan to develop Stone Forest Town while earning a lot of money. Others might not know where to obtain the auction house design, but he recalled a certain location that would guarantee the acquisition. The neutral map Morning Battlefield. Once the ancient Orc Empire's capital, the area hid plenty of treasure. This was especially true for the Imperial Palace's hidden treasury. The treasury contained rare items that the Empire had obtained by conquering other nations. The auction house design was one of those treasures. Moreover, it wasn't just any ordinary design. It was a Grandmaster's advanced auction house design. Ouroboros had obtained the design in the past. In the end, the guild had constructed the most gorgeous auction house in Star Moon Kingdom. It had caused quite a commotion. Even after 10 years, it had still been the #1 auction house in the kingdom. Beast Emperor's appearance had also given Shi Feng a massive windfall. The Evil God Crystal. Ordinary players might disregard the Evil God Crystal, throwing it away. The item's introduction only stated that it contained a horrific amount of evil energy after all, and those who carried it would be cursed to encounter disaster and misfortune. While this introduction was correct, it did fail to mention a particular aspect. The evil energy the Evil God Crystal radiated had a corrosive effect on normal players. It had a similar effect to residing in areas polluted with evil energy for too long. However, the evil energy within evil god crystals was also incredibly pure. It could help evil demons or beasts to evolve. Doing so would also increase the monster's growth potential. This was why Beast Emperor had wanted it so badly. It had another, more frightening purpose as well. It could become a power core for a city's magic array. Although the evil god crystal wasn't as effective as the Titan's heart, it was still an extremely precious power core. If used to power a city's magic array, it would upgrade the array to a whole new level. Both the city's defenses and its mana density would increase significantly. Various large guilds had desperately sought after the crystal in the past. Shi Feng hadn't expected a Grand Lord-ranked evil demon to drop the item. Normally, only Mythic-ranked evil demons and above had a small drop rate. In the past, the Super Guild ruling the Lionheart Empire had annihilated the evil god's temple, which had destroyed nearly half of the empire in the process. It had only obtained two evil god crystals after slaughtering dozens of Mythic-ranked and above evil demons. In the end, the guild had used the two crystals to power two of its cities. Both cities had eventually grown to become the number 1 and number 2 guild cities in the empire. After seeing the evil god crystal's wonderful potential, God's Domain's various large guilds had searched for and hunted down the temple's evil demons to obtain evil god crystals of their own. When Shi Feng saw the crystal drop from the Grand Lord, he even wondered if his eyes had played a trick on him. Chapter 1354, Town Changes. In Stone Forest Town, the evil beast and evil demon army gradually scattered. As a result, the intense battle had become a good opportunity to grind EXP. It was not very often that one came across chieftain rank and above monsters. Even when they did, fights between players might ensue. On average, both the evil beasts and evil demons provided more EXP than monsters of the same rank and level. Although more than 1/3 of the Zero Wing members had died in this siege war, the surviving members' levels had increased significantly. Most of them had leveled up at least once, while some had even gained 2 levels. As the siege war ended, Zero Wing had obtained a large number of level 40+ elite members. This is just too scary. Even those powerful monsters failed to conquer Stone Forest Town. With this, Zero Wing's position in Starmoon Kingdom is as stable as a mountain. Both the Star Alliance and Heaven's Burial have lost their chance to become the kingdom's number 1 guild. If I had known this would happen, I would have joined Zero Wing sooner. I might have been a core member by now. TCH, you think becoming core member in Zero Wing is that easy? I've heard that the first condition to become a core member is to reach the Trial Tower's 6th floor. Although everyone's combat standards have improved significantly since the game's launch, those capable of reaching the 6th floor are still considered experts in first-rate guilds. On the other hand, you're stuck on the 5th floor. How could you possibly have a chance of becoming a core member? If Zero Wing can protect Stone Forest Town from such a large army of monsters, setting up our headquarters there might not be a bad idea after all. Tomorrow we'll head to Stone Forest Town and purchase a private house. You want to get a private house with your standards? Don't make me laugh. One of my brothers is an upper echelon in a small guild. He's told me that several small guilds have decided to purchase the town's houses. Your adventurer team only has 100 or so members. Do you think you can compete with small guilds that have several thousand players? Stone Forest Town's victory over the evil beast and evil demon army was a hot topic among many players on the official forums. The strength Zero Wing displayed flabbergasted everyone. After this battle, no one in Starmoon Kingdom would dare challenge Zero Wing's position. Many of the previously hesitant independent players changed their minds, determined to join the guild. Many of these independent players hadn't considered applying to Zero Wing due to the guild's extremely high recruitment standards. If they joined other first-rate guilds, they would also receive far more benefits than if they joined Zero Wing. However, now that Zero Wing had proven how much stronger than other first-rate guilds it was, its high requirements made sense. Is this Zero Wing's true strength? Blue Phoenix, who had remained in White River City, was surprised to see peace returning to Stone Forest Town as she watched the livestream. Despite facing an army of 500,000+ monsters, not only had Zero Wing annihilated their enemy, but it had also only suffered a little over 10,000 casualties. However, although Blue Phoenix was shocked by the large number of high-tiered NPCs defending Stone Forest Town, Zero Wing's revelation of its intermediate mana pulse cannons and fleet of miniature ballistas frightened her. After all, while NPCs could not be dispatched outside of the town or city they belonged to, it was a different story for the intermediate mana pulse cannons and miniature ballistas. These war weapons could be employed against cities or to defend strategic locations. Not even the Dragon Phoenix Pavilion could compare to Zero Wing's firepower. Blue Phoenix had been prepared to lend Zero Wing the gnome cannons and special ammunition she had brought with her as a backup, but she was grateful that she hadn't. Both she and Phoenix Rain would have been laughingstocks. It seems I need to report this to Big Sis Rain. After giving the matter some thought, Blue Phoenix decided to report this situation immediately. Back in Stone Forest Town, Shifeng discovered a long line of independent players outside of the guild residence after using a guild transfer scroll to return. These players were all considerably high-leveled. Even the weakest among them was level 38, while some had reached as level 41. Their equipment was equally impressive, with the most inferior being Secret Silver rank. With a quick glance, Shifeng estimated that at least 200 such players waited outside the residence. Shifeng also spotted quite a few level 20+ players in line. "Guild leader, you're finally back," Aqua Rose said, smiling when she saw Shifeng emerge from the residence's teleportation hall. "Has something happened?" Shifeng asked curiously when he saw Aqua Rose's excited expression. "After we finished clearing out the monsters close to the residence, some of the players that bought Stone Forest Town's private houses teleported to the town and offered to cooperate with our guild. After a quick search, we discovered that most were representatives of well-known adventurer teams from other kingdoms and empires. There were also quite a few adventurer team representatives from Starmoon Kingdom and merchant players. Now that they feel certain of Stone Forest Town's security, they want to cooperate. Those adventurer teams have also stated that they're willing to sell us their rare materials for 70% market price in the future. However, they've requested that Zero Wing build more private houses suitable for adventurer teams. As for the merchant players, they'd like to see us sell a few shops in town. Of course, they're willing to pay for these structures." As she spoke, Aqua Rose gestured to the various adventurer team representatives and merchant players. In God's domain, adventurer teams and merchant players generally didn't invest in smaller guilds' towns. There were two reasons for this. First, guild towns had a lack of player traffic. Second, these independent players were concerned about a town's safety. In guild wars, there were no guarantees that rival guilds wouldn't capture or destroy a guild town. A few adventurer teams had only decided to purchase Stone Forest Town's private houses because of the tempting benefits the town offered. Several hundred gold coins might be astronomical to ordinary players, but it was affordable to the kingdom's top adventurer teams. However, setting up a main base of operations in a guild town was a different story. To adventurer teams with hundreds of players, it was clear that private houses, which could only accommodate a small number of players, were not suitable. Such teams needed the ruling guild to construct houses that catered to their activities, but guilds generally refused to construct such massive structures for no good reason. Moreover, purchasing such a large house would cost more than just a few hundred gold coins. Hence, both sides needed to compromise. But no adventurer team would risk such an investment until a guild town was stable. After this siege war, Stone Forest Town had proven that it was just as secure as an NPC town, allowing players to develop in the area without worry. Because of this, many well-known adventurer teams and merchant players hurried to Stone Forest Town, afraid that their competition would steal their opportunity. Not even Aqua Rose could make the decision to allow so many players into Stone Forest Town. She had to wait for Shifeng to return. "Guild leader, would you like to meet with them?" Aqua Rose asked. Chapter 1355, Adventurer House. Chapter 1355, Adventurer House. God's domain had plenty of adventurer teams. Aside from a few lone rangers, independent players with similar goals usually formed teams that were exempt from guild restrictions. Some of the top adventurer teams in the game were even as strong as some of the game's guilds. Take the Midnight Tea Party for example. It explored various dangerous locations in God's domain, constantly challenging its limits. The adventurer team was little more than a power group of lunatics. When these people gathered, even super guilds feared their prowess. Owl was another well-known adventurer team, just as famous as the Midnight Tea Party. However, Owl had more members than the Midnight Tea Party, and they weren't as addicted to battle. Rather, Owl consisted of players that enjoyed challenging all kinds of quests. In the past, Owl had even completed a few quests that super guilds had failed. Due to these top adventurer teams' fame, the guild towns and cities they occupied would become instantly popular as countless like-minded players swarmed to these locations. However, the Midnight Tea Party had been an exception in the past. The adventurer team had never set up a fixed base, and the team members' whereabouts had been a mystery, making the team nearly impossible to locate intentionally. Meanwhile, when a large number of adventurer teams occupied a guild town, the ruling guild would rake in considerable profit long-term, and these teams would help defend the town if it were attacked. Other guilds typically avoided targeting guild towns and cities that had multiple top adventurer teams. After all, not only would these guilds make an enemy of the defending guild by attacking the town, but they'd also make enemies of the adventurer teams. It simply wasn't a wise decision. Adventurer teams setting up in a guild town always benefited the ruling guild. They sure moved quickly. Shi Feng was slightly confused as he watched the various adventurer team representatives outside of the residence. He had assumed that it would take some more time before these teams made a decision. After all, the battle in Stone Forest Town had just ended, and investing in a guild town was an incredibly important decision that would affect the team's development. They needed to consider their options carefully. When I first saw them, I had assumed that they were experts some guild had sent to snatch the town token, Aqua Rose said, giggling. However, after listening to what they had to say, it seems that they were already interested in setting up in Stone Forest Town. Only they were hesitant due to concerns over the town's safety. After seeing Zero Wing's foundations, they rushed over. Tell them that Stone Forest Town still needs repairs, so we won't be selling any adventurer houses just yet. Once we've repaired the town, we'll construct 5 adventurer houses. When the time comes, the houses will be available in the candlelight auction and will go to the highest bidder, Shi Feng decided after giving the matter some thought. This? Aqua Rose was at a loss for words when she stared at Shi Feng's serious expression. Normally, guilds hope to house as many adventurer teams as possible in their towns to increase the town's overall strength. Some large guilds even sold their adventurer teams for a low price to attract these teams. Yet, not only had Shi Feng decided to sell a limited number of these adventurer houses, but he also intended to sell them off to the highest bidders. Such a bold decision was likely to chase away these adventurer teams. Just convey my decision. A town's development is never dependent on how many adventurer teams it has. As long as they are strong enough, 2 or 3 teams will be enough, Shi Feng said. A town's land was limited, and adventurer houses easily took up enough space for 20 private houses. Rather than increasing the town's security with a few measly adventurer teams, they'd benefit from more independent players visiting the town for rest and relaxation. Understood. I'll let them know. Aqua Rose could not help but sigh. Although she understood Shi Feng's reasoning, not even powerful adventurer teams were likely to pay a high price to occupy a guild town. After all, these teams would serve as free guards after investing in the town. Although Stone Forest Town offered considerable benefits, these benefits meant little to powerful adventurer teams. At most, they'd buy 1 or 2 private houses over competing for an adventurer house. Sure enough, once Aqua Rose informed the various teams of Shi Feng's decision, it caused a commotion among the various players. This incident immediately hit the kingdom's official forums, dissuading a few well-known adventurer teams from occupying Stone Forest Town. They're only selling 5 adventurer houses. Do they want us to pay to sever as the town's bodyguards? Zero Wing is dreaming. There are tons of guild towns that want us. Only an idiot would compete for those 5 slots. Zero Wing is too arrogant. Do they think that our only option is to set up in Stone Forest Town? Zero Wing's announcement came as a shock to ordinary players. They had never expected such a boastful stance from the guild. Of course, these players had never considered setting up a base in the town. After all, they could only afford a private house in Stone Forest Town in their dreams, much less an adventurer house. To Starmoon Kingdom's various adventurer teams, however, Zero Wing was just trying to scam them. Meanwhile, inside an ancient ruin in the Apocalypse Empire, a 20-man team rested in its temple. Corpses of level 55+ monsters littered the ground around them. The weakest of their enemies had been a chieftain, while the strongest had been a great lord, yet this 20-man team had slaughtered them. Moreover, not one member of the team had died. Ah, Black Flame, you really are an interesting man. Endless Scars laughed when she heard about Zero Wing's announcement. Big Sis Endless? Cloud Yarn, the cleric sitting beside her, was confused by Endless Scars' smile. Cloud Yarn wasn't the only one. The other team members also turned to look at their leader. Even the other members of the team could not help but turn to look at Endless Scars. Endless Scars had actually laughed. They could count the number of times they've seen her laugh since they had joined the team on their fingers. It's nothing. Zero Wing intends to auction off adventurer houses, and they're only selling a handful, Endless Scars explained. They're auctioning houses in limited quantities? What powerful adventurer team would be foolish enough to garrison in Stone Forest Town? Everyone was surprised to hear about Zero Wing's latest announcement. No matter how excellent Stone Forest Town's conditions were, the Stoneclaw Mountains was a regional dungeon with a level cap of 50. Many adventurer teams had already begun to purchase mounts for their members, and it wouldn't be long before they were over level 50. There weren't any other high-level and high-resource maps near Stone Forest Town. Powerful adventurer teams' priority was to level up and upgrade their weapons and equipment. Everything else was secondary. Even with the town's high mana density, there was no point to occupying Stone Forest Town. What sane adventurer team would possibly be willing to pay a huge price to set up a base in the town? Foolish, is it? As Endless Scars read the report about the siege war in Stone Forest Town, her interest in Zero Wing grew. After all, the guild had abandoned the opportunity to strengthen its town and used a completely different approach than the other guilds. Endless Scars found the guild's actions both confusing and intriguing. While Starmoon Kingdom's various major powers discussed the matter, Shi Feng, the perpetrator of this commotion, returned to White River City. After leaving the teleportation hall, he took an advanced horse carriage to the War God's Temple. Chapter 1356, Abandoned Waves End. Chapter 1356, Abandoned Waves End. Starmoon Kingdom, Starmoon City. After the battle in Stone Forest Town, many merchant players from neighboring kingdoms and empires gathered in the city. 3 out of 10 players that arrived in the teleportation hall were low-leveled merchant players in ordinary equipment. Normally, such a scene could only be found in imperial capitals. Upon arriving at Starmoon City, the merchant players teleported to the closest NPC town to Stone Forest Town. The long line at one of the departure teleportation arrays stupefied players. Why are all these merchant players heading to Stone Forest Town? Isn't it just a measly guild town? Why make such a huge fuss over it? Don't you know? When Zero Wing announced that it would auction adventurer houses, it had also declared that it would sell all kinds of shops to outsiders. These merchant players are heading to Stone Forest Town to get a better idea of the town's situation. The shops in NPC cities are too expensive. There's also a lot of competition with the various large guild shops on top of the high property tax every month. It's simply impossible for ordinary merchant players to afford. The shops in guild towns, on the other hand, are much cheaper. The monthly property tax is also much lower. Most importantly, Stone Forest Town's player traffic rivals in NPC cities. Due to the battle arena, expert players have gathered there, and they generally have plenty of precious resources. Merchant players will be able to buy and sell their items more conveniently if they had a shop in Stone Forest Town. Everyone knows that Stone Forest Town has near impeccable security now. Naturally, merchant players are eager to move into Stone Forest Town. In that case, wouldn't it be amazing if we developed in Stone Forest Town? Independent players quickly started making preparations to shift their base of operations to Stone Forest Town. Originally, the Candlelight trading firm's presence already made Stone Forest Town a good place to develop. Unfortunately, NPC cities sold a much more diverse selection of items than the Candlelight trading firm. Now that so many merchant players were planning to invest into Stone Forest Town, with some even coming from other kingdoms and empires, Stone Forest Town would sell a greater variety of items. Stone Forest Town's variety of merchandise might rival or even surpass Starmoon City's. Unlike shops in NPC cities, players could construct simple teleportation arrays in guild town shops. Merchant players could teleport directly to their shops without passing through Starmoon City or spending hours traveling by carriage. This encouraged merchant players to sell more products in Stone Forest Town, facilitating the transfer of merchandise. Heaven's Burial's upper echelons had gathered in the residence's meeting room. The meeting room was silent as everyone stared at Singular Burial, who wore a solemn expression. Despite foolishly throwing away the opportunity to invite famous adventurer teams to occupy Stone Forest Town, even more independent players were attracted by the mass of merchant players. Both Stone Forest Town and Zero Wing would develop rapidly. As a result, the gap between Heaven's Burial and Zero Wing would expand. Our only hope is to take down the Frost King as soon as possible. Although the rewards won't help us overtake Zero Wing, we can put up a fight, Singular Burial said helplessly. Not only was Zero Wing undamaged by abandoned waves, but it had helped increase Stone Forest Town's fame. He wouldn't have let Abandoned Wave take action so soon if he'd known this would happen. To make things worse, Abandoned Wave had been captured. With Abandoned Wave finished, there was no guild in Starmoon Kingdom capable of stopping Zero Wing from becoming the kingdom's overlord. Guild leader, I just received good news, Daybreak Fog said. Good news? Singular Burial inquired. What kind of good news could there be at a time like this? Didn't Black Flame kill Flame Blood? Broken Flow had brought his team to resurrect Flame Blood after failing at his task. Although Flame Blood had suffered grievous losses, he got to meet Abandoned Wave's leader, Beast Emperor. Beast Emperor had even secretly added Flame Blood as a friend, Daybreak Fog explained. Beast Emperor took the initiative to contact Flame Blood, stating that he wishes to have a personal chat with you. Beast Emperor also said that he's willing to help Heaven's Burial annihilate Zero Wing. Abandoned Wave's leader, is it? Singular Burial smiled. Alright, tell Flame Blood to send Beast Emperor a reply. Say that I'm willing to have a proper discussion with him. Daybreak Fog conveyed Singular Burial's response to Flame Blood. Shi Feng alighted from the advanced horse carriage and came face to face with White River City's War God's Temple. The War God's Temple served as a waypoint for teleporting to the Abyss battlefield. There were more players entering and leaving the War God's Temple now than the Adventurers Association. Players would visit the War God's Temple at least once a day. If the Adventurers Association was a good place for individual players to earn money, then the War God's Temple was a good place for players to level up and improve their foundational strength. If the Abyss battlefield didn't limit players to just one life per day, every player in the game would likely stay cooped up there and refuse to leave. Although the Abyss battlefield's monsters didn't drop coins, they dropped weapons and equipment as well as gave honor points. Honor points could be used to purchase tools, top-tier weapons and equipment from the War God's Temple. It was extremely difficult to survive inside the Abyss battlefield. Moreover, the higher level one reached, the more difficult the monsters would be. Expert players below level 50 could stay in the Abyss battlefield for an entire day as long as they didn't go anywhere too dangerous. Though their income would be lower if they didn't take risks, after a few days of grinding, they could still accumulate enough points to purchase good equipment. The weapons and equipment for sale at the War God's Temple were more suited towards PvP. The items' effects and basic attributes would be inferior to the items dropped by field bosses and team dungeons. Even so, the Abyss battlefield was still a paradise for solo players. After level 50, however, surviving in less dangerous maps would be even more difficult for expert players. Level 50 plus weapons and equipment cost substantially more honor points. Eventually, rather than a place for farming items, the Abyss battlefield became a training ground for expert players and a place for ordinary players to grind for the double EXP potion. When Shi Feng arrived at the War God's Temple's third-floor hall, a level 150, Tier 3 Great Mage greeted him. Sir, how may I help you? Casting a glance at the NPC, Shi Feng noticed that it was a senior administrator at the War God's Temple named Roland. I've captured an evil god apostle, so I'm here to claim the bounty. The first-floor hall of the War God's Temple dealt with all matters relating to the Abyss battlefield. The second floor was the War God's Temple's quest area, where players could accept quests or turn in their completed quests. Players were awarded merit points for completing War God's Temple quests. Similarly, players could spend merit points on items here. Players were allowed to freely enter the War God's Temple's first two floors. The third floor was different. As it was a place that specifically dealt with matters relating to the Dark Forces, players wouldn't be allowed to set foot onto the third floor if they didn't have any related matters. An evil god apostle? Roland's old face twitched. With a slightly suspicious look on his face, he looked at Shi Feng and said, "Can you allow me to confirm your claim's validity?" "Sure." Shi Feng took out the mobile jail and handed it to Roland. After Roland received the mobile jail, he chanted an incantation and tapped his finger on the crystal ball. An image appeared above the mobile jail. The image displayed Abandoned Wave trapped inside a dark space. Abandoned Wave was continuously hurling attacks at the surrounding space. He radiated evil energy and his eyes were bloodshot. It was obvious that he had already fallen into madness. It really is an evil god apostle. Shock flashed in Roland's eyes. The War God's Temple and the Evil God's Temple had a hostile relationship. Meanwhile, evil god apostles had received the evil god's blessing. They were rare in God's domain. Roland returned the mobile jail to Shi Feng and said respectfully, "Esteemed adventurer, please follow me. I'll bring you to meet with the Vice Temple Lord. I believe the Vice Temple Lord will be very happy to meet you." Chapter 1357, War God's Temple's Reward. Chapter 1357, War God's Temple's Reward. In the triumphant hall on the War God's Temple's fourth floor, Senior Administrator Roland led Shi Feng to one of the hall's astrology rooms. The astrology room was as dark as night, while the circular ceiling glittered like the night sky. From time to time shooting stars streaked by. The room's beauty was mesmerizing. As Shi Feng entered the room, Roland closed the doors from the outside. Instantly, Shi Feng felt an indescribably pleasant sensation run through him. With the fascinating scenery, he couldn't help his desire to remain in this room for the rest of his life. Why is the mana density in here so high? Shi Feng was curious about the incredibly dense mana surrounding him. This was the first time he had ever set foot in an astrology room. The War God's Temple's astrology rooms were forbidden to players. If not for having captured an evil god apostle, Roland wouldn't have led him here. Before entering the room, Shi Feng hadn't sensed any usual mana density from inside. Yet as soon as Roland left and shut the doors, mana started pouring filled the space. It was 3 times as dense as Stone Forest Town's mana, which had the support of 3 magic towers. If players could duel other experts or practice their skills and spells in such an environment, their growth would be astonishing. Young adventurer, you've arrived. A deep voice echoed throughout the entire astrology room. Shi Feng could not help but turn to the voice's origin. He spotted an old man in dark blue mage robes and wielding a staff. The old man manipulated a magic water ball as if he were searching for some kind of new spell. This old man was none other than Capra, one of the 3 Vice Temple Lords in White River City's War God's Temple. He was a level 180 Tier 3 Great Mage. He could be considered the oldest NPC in White River City. Not even Magistrate Weissman was as old. Capra should be the most knowledgeable NPC in White River City. After all, not only was Capra a Tier 3 Great Mage, but he was also a magic array master. However, due to Charlin's occupation of White River City's library, he ranked 2nd. I hear that you've captured an evil god apostle. Yes, Lord Capra. Shi Feng immediately retrieved the mobile jail from his bag. As soon as he revealed the crystal ball out, it vanished and reappeared in Capra's hand. Not bad. This is indeed an evil god apostle. Capra nodded lightly. Suddenly the mobile jail began to crumble. Following which, a cloaked, bandaged figure appeared before the old man. The moment Abandoned Wave appeared, the black cloak and bandages covering him were destroyed, exposing his true appearance. Abandoned Wave? Shi Feng was slightly surprised to see this man. Although his appearance had changed significantly, Shi Feng easily recognized him. Shi Feng hadn't expected Abandoned Wave to be the evil god apostle that attacked Stone Forest Town. However, after considering the matter, it seemed reasonable. The Blackwater Corporation had given up on Abandoned Wave. With his connection to the evil god's temple, becoming an evil god apostle was a matter of course if he wanted vengeance against Shi Feng. I'm free. Abandoned Wave was ecstatic when he realized that he had emerged from the mobile jail, but after looking around him, his mood plummeted. Not only did Shi Feng, disguised as Black Flame, stand before him, but a level 180 Tier 3 NPC also stared at him. Abandoned Wave's first thought was of escape. Immediately, Abandoned Wave ruffled through his bag space, trying to retrieve a Tier 1 instantaneous movement magic scroll. Shi Feng had caught him off guard earlier, so he hadn't had the opportunity to use it. As long as he could reach the scroll, he could flee. The instant Abandoned Wave got his hands the Tier 1 instantaneous movement magic scroll, he glanced at Shi Feng with a sinister smile. Black Flame, just you wait. I'll give you a taste of despair the next time we meet. Following which, Abandoned Wave unfurled the magic scroll and activated it. Abandoned Wave's elated expression returned the instant the scroll activated. It was as if he could already see Shi Feng's tragic ending. However, after a few seconds, Abandoned Wave realized that he hadn't moved. And since he had activated the scroll, the instantaneous movement magic scroll faded from his hands. Despair? Shi Feng could not help but laugh and shake his head when he saw the confusion on Abandoned Wave's face. Don't you realize that you're in the War God's Temple? In God's domain, all teleportation tools and skills were useless inside a War God's Temple. Players could only use these items after leaving the building. This was basic knowledge to God's domain's players. Hearing the words War God's Temple, fear twisted Abandoned Wave's expression. He was fully aware of the consequences should the War God's Temple capture him. Beast Emperor had warned him about this. When the War God's Temple captured an evil God's Temple player, it signified the end for said player. The captured player's only option would be starting a new account. Moreover, they wouldn't be allowed to rejoin the game immediately. They would have to wait 1 month before they could create the new account. After experiencing the joy God's domain had to offer, being unable to play for an entire month would be unbearable for players. Moreover, by the time Abandoned Wave rejoined the game, God's domain would be a different world with how fast it was developing. Black Flame. Abandoned Wave practically screamed Shifeng's name. Although he wanted to say more, Capra had already begun to chant an incantation. In the next moment, dozens of golden chains appeared around Abandoned Wave, piercing his body. He screamed in pain as he started to burn. Eventually he turned to ash and vanished from the astrology room. Abandoned Wave's hatred for him hadn't particularly surprised Shifeng. Even a peak expert would struggle to catch up if they were banned from the game for a month and had to start from scratch. The Blackwater Corporation had also given up on Abandoned Wave long ago. With Abandoned Wave standards, they were not likely to meet again. Furthermore, Beast Emperor had lost an evil god apostle slot. Following which, a series of system notifications reached Shifeng's ears. System, congratulations. You have captured an evil god apostle. Rewarding 10,000 War God's Temple merit points, reputation with the War God's Temple increased by 500 points, 100 million EXP, 50 free mastery points and 5 legacy skill points. System, congratulations. You are the first person to have eliminated an evil god apostle. Rewarding War God's Warrior title. System, Capra's favorability has increased by 300 points. What an abundant reward. Shifeng's excitement grew as he read the notifications. This was especially true when he saw the War God's Warrior title and his increased favorability with Capra. He had only heard of the War God's Warrior title in the past. He didn't know much about it. Although this title wouldn't benefit a player's strength, it elevated players to one rank below the temple's vice-temple lords. With this benefit, he could easily purchase items that required extremely high reputation in the War God's Temple's exchange center. He wouldn't need to complete numerous high-difficulty quests, increasing his reputation. However, the title was slightly less valuable than his favorability with Capra. Capra was a magic array master. If he could earn enough favorability with Capra, he would gain access to all sorts of magic arrays. He might even get to purchase the rumored advanced mana gathering magic array, which could double the mana density in a 500-yard radius. Not only was this array's effective area vast, but it also increased the mana density by so much. One could just imagine how much it could benefit a guild. Countless players had tried all sorts of methods to gain favorability with this NPC. Unfortunately, doing so was extremely difficult and would become even more so after every 100-point increment. Very few players had gained 100 points of the Elder's favorability in the past. Only a handful had ever earned 200 points. Shifeng had never even heard of any players earning 300 points. Chapter 1358, Lost Magic Array. Chapter 1358, Lost Magic Array. With such high favorability and merit point rewards, it's no wonder why those guilds had hunted evil God's Temple players in the past. Shifeng couldn't help his growing elation as he looked at his rewards. Although the 10,000 merit points was a lot, without the corresponding reputation and favorability, they were useless. Even after challenging the 12 trials, he had only been awarded 6,800 merit points. The items he could purchase were extremely limited. With 10,000 merit points he had a greater variety available to him. Moreover, he could purchase items from Capra. Lord Capra, I've heard that you are a magic array master. I have always been very interested in magic arrays. May I know if I can purchase a few from you? Shifeng asked. Purchasing items from Capra required a minimum of 100 favorability. Although 300 points were far from the maximum favorability one could earn with Capra, Shifeng had never heard of a single player with such high favorability in the past. You are interested in magic arrays? Capra's elderly eyes shone with an excited light when he heard the words, magic array. He continued, of course you can. Very few youngsters are so studious. Come here. This magic water ball holds all of my records on magic arrays. If you wish to learn one you can use this. However, the War God's Temple rules still apply. To learn a magic array, you'll need to pay the corresponding merit points. Learn them from the magic water ball? Feng was slightly confused, though he nodded and approached the magic water ball. He had come to purchase magic arrays from Capra in the past as well, but the old man had been in a workshop instead of an astrology room. All of his magic arrays had been displayed on a bookshelf. He hadn't expected that he would get to choose an array from a magic water ball. Magic arrays were not as easy to learn as most players assumed. The process was extremely complex. Learning a magic array from a book was troublesome and difficult. Learning from a magic water ball was much easier. Players could practice the production steps through the water ball without wasting precious materials. This would greatly help improve one's learning speed. As Feng tapped on the floating water ball, an exchange list appeared before him. Amazing. There are so many advanced magic arrays available. Feng's eyes glowed as he read the exchange list. If one had to point out the most difficult item to obtain in God's domain, it would definitely be magic arrays. Magic arrays also provided the most assistance. For example, there were suppression magic arrays, summoning magic arrays, defensive magic arrays, and many more. Unfortunately, obtaining a basic magic array was incredibly challenging for the various large guilds, not to mention intermediate and advanced rank. Feng now had access to more than 30 basic magic arrays, 8 intermediate magic arrays, and 3 advanced magic arrays. In the past, Capra had only given Feng one advanced magic array option, the Advanced Mana Gathering Magic Array. Now, however, there were 3. Of course, they were also frighteningly expensive. Basic magic arrays only cost between 500 and 1,500 merit points, while intermediate magic arrays cost between 3,000 and 5,000 merit points, and the 3 advanced magic arrays cost between 8,000 to 15,000 merit points. Among the advanced magic arrays, the cheapest was the Advanced Mana Gathering Magic Array. It was worth as much as the 7 Luminaries ring he had purchased long ago. These are celestial magic arrays. Glancing at the 3 advanced magic arrays, Feng was stunned. Celestial magic arrays weren't like the arrays players commonly stumbled upon. These had survived since ancient times, lost in God's domain for many years. Every celestial magic array was incredibly powerful, and because they borrowed power from the stars, they didn't consume as much mana as ordinary magic arrays. Celestial magic arrays had been very popular in God's domina, but for some unknown reason they had vanished. Yet those magic arrays had appeared before Feng. Feng found it hard to imagine that he could actually purchase celestial magic arrays from Capra. He had only ever heard rumors of such a thing. In his previous life, very few guilds had possessed celestial magic arrays. Purgatory Star Magic Array, Advanced Celestial Magic Array. Suppress all enemies within a 200-yard radius, weakening their basic attributes by 70% if they are Tier 3, 50% if they are Tier 4, and 20% if they are Tier 5. Required merit points, 15,000. Starlight Gathering Magic Array, Advanced Celestial Magic Array. Creates an enclosed space with a 500-yard radius, increasing the mana density within the enclosed space by 300%. Required merit points, 12,000. Although the introductions were brief, Feng read them with bated breath. The Advanced Mana Gathering Magic Array could only increase the mana density in a 500-yard radius by 200%, but the Starlight Gathering Magic Array increased the density by 300%. Although there was only a 50% boost to players' performance, it was a qualitative difference. As for the Purgatory Star Magic Array, even challenging Tier 4 mythic monsters would become easier with its power. After all, the majority of the advanced magic arrays available in God's domain could only suppress Tier 4 mythic monsters by 30%. For a time, Feng was fraught with indecision. He had initially planned to purchase the Advanced Mana Gathering Magic Array, saving his remaining points for special tools that could aid him in the morning battlefield. However, the Starlight Gathering Magic Array just too tempting. He had experienced such a powerful array in a super guild's main city in the past, and he had to admit that the magic array had been wonderfully effective. When he had practiced his combat techniques inside the magic array, his training efficiency had risen by leaps and bounds. Even the Divine Colosseum's Trial Tower could not compare to that magic array's effects. Only the Holy City of Titan could surpass it. However, to reach locations such as the Holy City, one's status needed to be extremely high, and they needed to pay an exorbitant price. Very few large guilds could afford such a price. Forget it. Let's just pick it. Feng gritted his teeth and chose the Starlight Gathering Magic Array. It was extremely difficult to obtain War God's Temple merit points. If he purchased the Advanced Mana Gathering Array, it would be a long time before he gathered enough points to purchase the Starlight Gathering Magic Array. Now that Stone Forest Town had stabilized, and he had begun his city's construction, setting up the Starlight Gathering Array in both locations would further reinforce their popularity. System: the Starlight Gathering Magic Array requires 12,000 merit points. You have 3,500 War God's Temple reputation points. You may pay 20% of the merit point cost in coins. Do you wish to use coins? System: based on the system's analysis of the current market, each merit point is worth 2 gold coins. Do you wish to proceed? Purchase. Shi Feng agreed to the transaction without hesitation. 4,800 gold for 2,400 merit points wasn't particularly expensive. Fortunately, the required currency wasn't magic crystals. He wouldn't have been able to fork over a single crystal. Shi Feng wasn't particularly surprised that the cost of merit points had increased. In the future, he would likely have to part with an exorbitant amount of gold coins in exchange for merit points. After all, as players reached higher levels, their income would continue to increase. The game's player population was also increasing. As a result, more coins would become available in God's domain. It was only natural for their value to depreciate. Of course, the main God system constantly worked to lower inflation by reducing the number of coins in the market. Suddenly, Capra asked curiously, "Young adventurer, you have chosen a celestial magic array." "Yes. I am very interested in learning the magic arrays that have been passed down since ancient times," Shi Feng confirmed, nodding. Practically every God's Domain player had been interested in celestial magic arrays in the past. "I won't stop you from purchasing it. However, I need to remind you that celestial magic arrays aren't like your conventional magic arrays. Producing them requires extremely rare materials. They are impossible to mass-produce," Capra reminded. "Thank you for the information, Lord Capra," Shi Feng responded respectfully. He had already been aware of the celestial magic array's flaws. However, even the Advanced Mana Gathering Magic Array's materials were exceedingly difficult to obtain. Since both arrays' materials were challenging to collect, it was wiser to choose the more powerful array. Following which, Capra chanted an incantation. Suddenly, a palm-sized water ball separated from its massive counterpart. The ball of water then landed in Shi Feng's hands. After obtaining the Starlight Gathering Magic Array and leaving the War God's Temple, Shi Feng received a communication request from Aqua Rose. "What's the rush? Has something happened?" Shi Feng asked when he saw the woman's anxiety. "Guild leader, check the official forums." Some time ago, Heaven's Burial signed an agreement with several top adventurer teams and dozens of well-known adventurer teams. These adventurer teams have officially occupied Heaven's Burial's town. News of this has already reached the various large guilds, Aqua Rose hurriedly reported. Chapter 1359, Pioneering the Ancient Empire. Chapter 1359, Pioneering the Ancient Empire. Top adventurer teams have occupied Heaven's Burial's town? The report confused Shi Feng. In God's Domain, adventurer teams fell into various ranks just like guilds. When referring to Starmoon Kingdom's adventurer teams, the well-known team's overall strength could compare to a first-rate guild's elite teams. As for the kingdom's top adventurer teams, every one possessed several dozens of experts. Among these expert players, a small portion could rival first-rate guilds' peak experts. When it came to raiding team dungeons, they were even stronger than some large guilds' main forces. Normally, these top adventurer teams ventured to dangerous maps that even guild elite teams avoided. Their leveling speed was no slower than guild elite players that occupied high-resource maps. This was also why these top adventurer teams paid no attention to the benefits most guild towns offered, so much so that they even ignored invitations from large guilds. Based on Aqua Rose's report, however, it seemed that more than one top adventurer team had set up a base in Heaven's Burial's town. Why wouldn't Shi Feng be surprised? He immediately checked the official forums, getting a detailed idea of the situation. Heaven's Burial and 3 top adventurer teams have reached an agreement. These adventurer teams will occupy Red Iron Town and will explore the Frozen Scar alongside the guild's forces. Good news. Red Iron Town will soon open the Red Iron Mine to the public. Players will gain access to the mine for a 30% harvesting fee. These 2 messages caused an uproar on the Starmoon Kingdom forums as everyone talked about the town. This is going to be awesome. I've heard that the Red Iron Mine is a small-scale regional dungeon. Not only do the mine's monsters have higher drop rates, but you can also harvest all sorts of ores. We'll make a killing. Why is Heaven's Burial being so generous? 3 of Starmoon Kingdom's top adventurer teams and many well-known teams have garrisoned in Red Iron Town. The town's security will likely only be second to Stone Forest Town. And there are so many high-resource maps nearby. There is even a teleportation array very close to the town. Developing in Red Iron Town might not be a bad idea. It seems Heaven's Burial has finally gotten serious. This is going to be interesting. I wonder which town will take the position of Starmoon Kingdom's #1 guild town? Stone Forest Town or Red Iron Town? Stone Forest Town is definitely the #1 town right now, but it might not stay that way. After all, Heaven's Burial is quite powerful. With the assistance of 3 top adventurer teams, it won't be long before they explore the Frozen Scar's entire map. Red Iron Town's players will be able to teleport to any of Heaven's Burial's towns from Evernight City. Transportation to and from Red Iron Town will become far more convenient than traveling to and from Stone Forest Town. I guess that's true. There really aren't any level 50+ high-resource maps near Stone Forest Town either. It's only suitable to players below level 50. Considering long-term development, Red Iron Town is the better option. Moreover, with 3 top adventurer teams based in the town, it'll be easier for adventurer teams to contact each other in the future. The new changes in Red Iron Town tempted many players. While it was important to increase one's individual strength, leveling and upgrading equipment was more so. More players were reaching level 40, yet despite having met the level requirement to gain a mount, most were too poor to purchase one and had to continue their travels on foot. Red Iron Town was also attractive due to how easy it would be to earn coins. Heaven's Burial is even willing to part with such a gold mine? Shifeng was astonished as he read the forum posts. It was not easy to open a mine. First, a team needed to defeat the mine's boss. Otherwise, the monsters inside would continue to respawn quickly. The monsters would also scale to the highest leveled player that entered the mine. As the boss respawned periodically, players were also required to defeat it each time they encountered it. Furthermore, the mines or deposits were limited and would only respawn when the boss did. When a guild occupied a mine, they generally only allowed their own people inside. Yet, Heaven's Burial was generous enough to open the mine to the general public after clearing its monsters and boss. Although iron ore wasn't particularly valuable, not many towns in God's domain had access to an ore vein. Hence, the various large guilds would prioritize towns with the most common ore veins as they offered a plethora of riches. Guild leader, once it secured the adventurer team's assistance, Heaven's Burial dispatched a 1,000-man elite team to pioneer the Frozen Scar. They also sent their 100-man main force. Even the main force's weakest player is level 42. They'll clear the map much faster than their previous exploration, Aqua Rose said helplessly. On the other hand, we just survived a massive war. Although we didn't have many casualties, we had lost many of our experts and main force members. During the final stand at the guild residence in particular, we lost a significant number of our main force members and core members. While weapons and equipment aren't a problem, the players who were killed by evil demons suffered double the usual penalty. Our main force and core members that had died lost 2 levels apiece. This has significantly slowed our progress in the Blizzard Fortress and with the Frost King. Moreover, the dark guilds around White River City are growing bolder. We've had to dispatch our experts to deal with them from time to time. Guild leader, should we recall Snow's forces and prioritize killing the Frost King? It had never been wise to underestimate Heaven's Burial's main force. And now that so many top and well-known adventurer teams had joined Heaven's Burial's exploration team, the team's overall strength had increased. In contrast, Zero Wing had been forced to dispatch its main force and experts to various locations to expand the guild's influence. As a result, their exploration team's strength had fallen. If they let Heaven's Burial get the Frost King's first kill, Heaven's Burial's position in Evernight City would become unshakable. Meanwhile, Zero Wing would lose the best opportunity to gain access to Evernight City. If that happened, Stone Forest Town's popularity would plummet by the time mainstream players reached level 50. In fact, Red Iron Town had nearly caught up to Stone Forest Town. Forget it. We can't recall Snow. If we don't have a team of experts there to defend the Branch Guild and the Black Dragon Empire, the Empire's large guilds will take the opportunity to strike, Shifeng said, shaking his head. This was why he had refused to ask Gentle Snow for help to protect Stone Forest Town. He then said, "This is a golden opportunity. It's been a while since Zero Wing had a large-scale guild operation. Aqua, see to the necessary preparations. Round up 1,000 people. Aside from the main force members and core members, do not select any elite players below level 40. After you've finished, have them gather in Dark Lake Town. We're going to pioneer the ancient Orc Empire." Guild leader, you're going to lead the operation? Aqua Rose's excitement grew as her guild leader issued orders. Normally, the guild leader would organize guild operations as their main purpose was to increase the guild's prestige and motivation. However, Shifeng was usually too busy. Normally he was impossible to find. Hence, Zero Wing's vice guild leaders, such as herself and Gentle Snow, organized these events. Although nobody in the guild had complained, practically every player that joined Zero Wing knew of Black Flame, and they were all dying to meet him. The guild's main force and core members were particularly eager to quest and raid dungeons with their guild leader. "MHM. I'll take command this time." Shifeng nodded. He had initially intended to head to the Frozen Scar, but the environment was simply too harsh. Without sufficient preparation, the Frost King was impossible to raid. Moreover, his current goal was to help his people level up. Naturally, they had to travel to a higher level map. The guild members will go crazy when they hear this. Aqua Rose responded, smiling. She immediately disconnected the call and began to address the necessary arrangements. Chapter 1360, Shocking Everyone. Chapter 1360, Shocking Everyone. White River City, Zero Wing's residence. After disconnecting her call with Shifeng, Aqua Rose published an announcement in the guild chat. The guild leader will be leading a guild operation personally. All main force members and core members in Starmoon Kingdom, gather in White River City immediately. Elite members level 40 and above may apply to join by contacting me. Priority will be given to those with guild mounts. The instant the announcement published, the guild chat exploded with comments. Vice guild leader, this isn't a trick, right? Boss Black Flame is really going to lead us. What? The guild leader is leading a guild op himself. Are we going after some guild? This is awesome. I need to apply. Big Sis Aqua, can't you relax the requirements a little bit? I've just reached level 40 after many difficulties. I can't afford a guild mount right now. Haha, this is great. I've been saving up and bought a guild mount as soon as they were available. For a time, Zero Wing's members were frenzied. This was especially true for the main force and core members. They were all fully aware of what benefits a guild leader-led operation would offer. Not only could they level up incredibly fast, but they'd also get to see the guild leader in action up close as they gained combat experience. Less than a minute after the announcement, Aqua Rose received over 1,000 applications. At the same time, plenty of members were disappointed. After all, despite such a rare opportunity to join a large-scale operation, led by their guild leader himself, they didn't qualify to join because they had already spent their GCP and coins on upgrading their weapons and equipment. They did not have any money to purchase a guild mount. While Aqua Rose selected participants from her elite members, the various guild experts scattered across Starmoon Kingdom returned to the residence in White River City. Very quickly, the overall mood in the residence lifted considerably as the guild members' excitement grew. Meanwhile, the players lined up outside the residence's entrance hoping to join Zero Wing were stunned as they watched Zero Wing's experts return. Not only were these experts above level 40, but they were also ridiculously well geared, with even the most inferior piece of equipment being level 40 fine gold rank. Many of these experts even wielded level 40 dark gold weapons. Meanwhile, the number of such experts returning continued to increase. The most incredible sight was the tall, mighty thunder wolves traveling next to these experts. After entering the guild residence, these experts lined up outside of the guild hall, yet despite their quiet stances, they all radiated an indescribably heavy pressure. What's Zero Wing planning? Their guild mounts are so cool. Why do I get the feeling that I couldn't even defeat one of those guild mounts in a fight? Everyone was utterly stupefied. Although many players had already reached level 40, very few had mounts, yet hundreds of thunder wolves stood before them. Players who didn't know any better might assume that this was an NPC army. Moreover, everyone could see around 50 different types of mounts aside from the thunder wolves. Every mount was bronze rank or above. Not everyone had a clear grasp of Zero Wing's power, but after this display, they finally understood why Zero Wing was Starmoon Kingdom's #1 guild. While other guilds struggled to get common mounts, Zero Wing had already popularized the Thunder Wolf. Shortly after Zero Wing's 1,000-man legion had gathered, with Aqua Rose in the lead, the legion departed for White River City's teleportation hall. As the 1,000-man legion rode their mounts across White River City, players unconsciously made way as the legion's imposing momentum swept over them. When Zero Wing's legion stopped in front of the teleportation hall, the adventurer teams and guild teams visiting from other kingdoms, confused and curious about what was happening. 1,000 mounted players stood before the teleportation hall's entrance. The various guild teams who had stopped in White River City on their way to the Twin Towers Kingdom to level, were afraid of leaving the teleportation hall, concerned that their lives might be at stake if they did. "Which guild are these players from?" a burly man with silver hair in the teleportation hall asked in shock. "You don't know? Are you new to God's domain?" a level 31, simple-looking swordsman asked. "I'm new actually. I've just reached level 10 today and came to White River City." The silver-haired man nodded. "No wonder," the swordsman said as he took a look at the level of the silver-haired man and his companions. Indeed, they were all level 10 players. They are all Zero Wing members. Zero Wing is Starmoon Kingdom's bona fide #1 guild. It's a pity that I'm not strong enough. Otherwise I'd join Zero Wing as well. Zero Wing? The name was somewhat familiar to this silver-haired. "Big brother Tianji, isn't Zero Wing the guild that Hall Master Jiang wanted to work with?" a bald man asked quietly. "What? That's the guild that kind belonged to?" Tianji was stunned. How is that possible? Before he led the White Tiger Dojo's disciples into God's domain, he had to establish a firm understanding of the game. After all, they had learned that competent fighters would have an edge in God's domain. To fighting experts like himself, combat was commonplace. Hence, battles in a virtual world would be trivial. However, as he encountered the game's virtual combat, he quickly realized that the combat in God's domain wasn't very different from combat in reality. Although he and his subordinates had an advantage, there were some slight differences between virtual combat and real-life combat. Their advantage was limited. After playing the game for some time, he also gained a general understanding of various NPC towns guilds. Surprisingly, these guilds were far more impressive than he had assumed. At one point he had dueled an expert from a small guild. Even with his skills, the expert had defeated him. The experience had taught him how impressive God's domain truly was. Of course, he was confident of surpassing these small guild experts sooner or later. After all, he had only begun playing the game a few days ago. With the White Tiger Dojo's strength and enough disciples, he was confident that they could establish a guild and raise it to third-rate status quickly. If they wanted to contest with second-rate guilds, the dojo would be required to invest a large amount of resources and time. As for contesting against first-rate guilds, it was too soon for the dojo to aim so high. After all, first-rate guilds were backed by major corporations. They also had dozens of years' worth of history in the virtual gaming world and had long since established their own training systems. The White Tiger Dojo had no hope of catching up to first-rate guilds in a short time unless they annexed second-rate guilds or purchased shares of a particular first-rate guild. Investing in a first-rate guild would depend on whether or not the guild was willing to sell shares. After all, these guilds didn't lack willing investors. Tianji never thought that Shifeng, some no-name dojo's head instructor, directed such a power. Meanwhile, as Zero Wing's members left White River City through the teleportation arrays, news of the Legion's mobilization reached Starmoon Kingdom's various major powers. Why is Zero Wing dispatching such a massive force? With so many experts, has Zero Wing targeted some guild? Could Zero Wing be planning to exterminate the Dark Guilds? Normally, these major powers ignored a 1,000-man elite team. However, they couldn't ignore such a legion from Zero Wing. After all, every one of those players was an expert. If Zero Wing had targeted a particular guild, even a 10,000-man elite army would not be able to stop this legion. For a time, the various major powers discussed their guesses about Zero Wing's intentions. They also recalled their own members to their respective cities. Chapter 1361, Ancient Orc Empire. Chapter 1361, Ancient Orc Empire. Inside a snow-dusted gorge in the frozen Scar. The air was cold enough to fog players' breath. Ice-covered plants glittered like ice sculptures, littering the ground. A 1,000-man legion advanced through the gorge with level 42 and above guardian knights and shield warriors guarding the forefront, creating an iron wall that blocked the narrow path. Level 46 and 47 violent frost bears, strength-type high lords, crashed into this iron wall relentlessly. Violent frost bear, elemental creature, high lord. Level 47. HP 31, 000, 000/31, 000, Even with a successful block, ordinary MTs would lose over 10,000 HP with each of these frost bears' normal attacks. Not only did these attacks contain an immense amount of the violent frost bear's strength, but their attacks also had the freezing penetration effect. Freezing penetration have the target's reaction speed, attack speed, and healing received. Moreover, shields couldn't completely block the effect. Factoring in the violent frost bear's high attack speed and their tier 2 skill, Snow Trample, the frontline's MTs could die in an instant if the healers lost focus. This was why so many teams had been stuck in this snowy gorge, unable to proceed into the frozen scar. However, when this legion's guardian knights and shield warriors received the violent snow bear's attacks, they never received more than -7,000 damage. Even when the high lords used their skills, the MTs didn't sustain more than -20,000 damage. To these MTs who had over 40,000 HP, these bears were little more than pests. Guild leader the Frozen Heart is quite impressive. It seems that Beast Emperor hadn't lied. With the Frozen Heart, our chances of raiding the Frost King have increased by at least 20%, Daybreak Fog commented as she looked at the pulsing crystal heart in her hand. This is only the beginning, Singular Burial said, chuckling. Each of the top 3 top adventurer teams working with us have their own specialties. Due to their participation, our team is considerably stronger. It is only a matter of time before we kill the Frost King. Zero Wing had just experienced a great war. Although the monster army hadn't damaged the guild's overall strength, it had made a mess of Stone Forest Town. Zero Wing had also lost nearly half of its main force and core members. It would take the guild a considerable amount of time to recover to its peak. Moreover, Zero Wing was currently expanding its influence on multiple fronts. Its enemies weren't limited to Heaven's Burial. The Black Dragon Empire's various guilds also eyed Zero Wing, waiting for an opportunity to strike. Based on the reports he had received, he knew that various minor conflicts had broken out between Zero Wing and the Empire's large guilds. Furthermore, the shadow of a certain superpower seemed to loom behind many of these guilds. If Zero Wing wanted to stabilize its position in the Black Dragon Empire, it would need a large number of experts to defend it. Now that Zero Wing needed to recuperate, Heaven's Burial had an opportunity to catch up. With the Frozen Heart, their leveling efficiency in the Frozen Scar was exceptional. As an Azura mode regional dungeon, these monsters provided far more EXP than monsters elsewhere. Once Heaven's Burial's core members reached level 49, they could challenge level 50 large-scale team dungeons before other guilds and secure the Frost King's first kill. At that time, Red Iron Town might even be on par with Stone Forest Town. Heaven's Burial also had Beast Emperor's secret support. As Singular Burial sketched out his plan in his mind, Daybreak Fog suddenly paled. Guild leader, this is bad. Apparently, Zero Wing had dispatched a legion of 1,000 experts. Every member of the legion has a mount, and Black Flame himself is in command. Although we still don't know their intentions, everyone suspects that the guild has targeted someone. Guilds throughout the kingdom have begun to recall their main forces and ordered their other teams to spread out. Should we do the same? Daybreak Fog asked worriedly after reading the message she had just received. A 1,000 expert legion was no trivial matter. Moreover, Black Flame himself led this group. Do our spies in Zero Wing know where the legion is going? Singular Burial asked. Our spies' ranks aren't high enough for the guild operation, Daybreak Fog replied, shaking her head. Although she had wanted to send experts into Zero Wing, the guild's management was incredibly strict. The guild actively used the main god system's contracts to restrict members in ways they didn't normally pay attention to. Daybreak Fog found it hard to imagine that Zero Wing had only established a few months ago. Not even first-rate guilds could compare to Zero Wing's setup. The guild investigated every expert they accepted, making it very difficult to spy on Zero Wing. They had been forced to send a few players with potential, having them gradually grow stronger. However, what Daybreak Fog did not know was that Shifeng had been a guild leader in God's domain for nearly a decade. Meanwhile, the guild systems in 10 years would be far more complex. He had various ways to deal with spies. Although he couldn't eradicate all of the spies among the middle and lower echelon members, he could contain the guild's important secrets. As a precaution, scatter the Ghost Shadow Legion's assassins throughout the Frozen Scar. Have them report back as soon as they discover Zero Wing's Legion. Singular Burial commanded after giving the matter some thought. In reality though, Singular Burial doubted that Zero Wing would pick a fight with Heaven's Burial. After all, both guilds had a neutral stance with each other on the surface, focusing on their own development. Zero Wing had no reason to deal with Heaven's Burial. Abandoned Wave had led the monster army against Stone Forest Town. Flame Blood had also reported that his identity hadn't been exposed. Moreover, if their guilds fought, other guilds would take advantage of the situation. After all, God's domain had already entered the era of mounts. The various large guilds were developing rapidly. However, Singular Burial decided to be careful due to Shifeng's penchant for the unexpected. Meanwhile, in Dark Lake Town, which most players avoided, Shifeng configured his team and issued their tasks. Alright, let's set out. Once the team was ready, they left the town. Big Sis Aqua, there aren't any high-resource maps nearby. Since he's gathered so many of us, does Guild Leader plan to raid one of the Dark Forces towns? Blackie asked curiously as he gazed at the wilderness around him. Dark Lake Town was located near Starmoon Kingdom's border. The town's surroundings were bleak, without any resources to speak of. Even though the local maps were suitable for level 40+ players, no one was willing to go this far to level. Only the nearby dark towns were worth any attention. The dark forces tended to operate in this area since it was so close to the kingdom's border. Not only could a crusade against these dark towns increase the guild's popularity, but they could also gain access to the treasure these dark towns hid. Only the dark towns in this area were extraordinary and would be very difficult to raid. I'm not sure. The guild leader has said that we'll understand once we arrive, Aqua Rose said, shaking her head. She didn't know Shifeng's intentions either. Based on what she knew, level 65 to 40 NPCs guarded these dark towns. Raiding such a town was still beyond their abilities. However, as everyone considered the possibilities, Shifeng led the Legion across Starmoon Kingdom's border and into the neutral map, Morning Battlefield. For the most part, everyone was familiar with Starmoon Kingdom's maps, but they knew very little about the maps outside of the kingdom. However, that did not prevent them from sensing the danger in their surroundings. What is this place? When the Legion entered the Morning Battlefield, many shuddered involuntarily as they felt a dense killing intent wash over them, their minds alerting them to the danger. Suddenly they noticed 3 to 4 meter tall, green orcs. These orcs wielded spears, bows and arrows and wore simple armor. Around 500 orcs patrolled a short rampart. Although far fewer, some orcs wielded massive war axes wearing slightly better equipment. Even so, everyone on the team felt a massive pressure radiating from the war axe-wielding orcs. Orc Sentinel Humanoid Creature, Chieftain. Level 75. HP 8 400 000/8 400 000. Orc Captain Humanoid Creature, Great Lord. Level 77. HP 78 000/78 000. Humanoid creatures possessed considerably high intellect. Escaping these monsters' pursuit along would be challenging, not to mention killing them. Guild Leader, are we here to grind these monsters? Sweat dripped down Shadow Sword's forehead as he stared at the orc captains on the ramparts. From where he stood, he counted at least 20 orc captains, and this wasn't Stone Forest Town. They didn't have the assistance of the magic towers and NPC guards. Charging at these monsters would be suicidal. Relax. Shifeng smiled nonchalantly. He then removed miniature ballistas and exploding arrows from his bag, one after another. The Morning Battlefield was an excellent grinding map. Unfortunately, it wasn't suitable for ordinary player teams. These orcs moved in large groups and were incredibly strong individually. In general, only Tier 2 100-man teams had any hope of safely grinding here. Although his players hadn't reached Tier 2 yet, they could compensate with the miniature ballistas. Chapter 1362, Team Skyrockets. Chapter 1362, Team Skyrockets. Miniature ballistas. Are we? As Zero Wings players watched Shifeng reveal one miniature ballista after another, their jaws hit the floor as they considered a possibility. Miniature ballistas were war weapons that most guilds treated like their own children. No guild would use them outside of a guild war or siege. Yet, Shifeng intended to use such precious weapons to grind monsters. If other guilds learned about Zero Wings' extravagant grinding method, they would most likely try to strangle Shifeng. Guild leader, isn't this a little too wasteful? Even Aqua Rose was astonished as she stared at the miniature ballistas. The other guild members might not realize where these miniature ballistas had come from, but she did. Although players could craft these miniature ballistas, each one was considerably expensive to make. The materials alone cost more than 100 gold. Even with a master engineer like Burning Abyss and the basic meditation room, the production success rate wasn't particularly high. As a result, each ballista cost around 500 to 600 gold to produce. As for the exploding arrows, each cost roughly 3 silver to craft. Aside from risking the miniature ballista's destruction in battle, their durability would decrease from repeated use. The repair fees would also be a painful expenditure. Using these weapons to level guild members was too extravagant. Don't mind that. Resources are meant to be used. Rather than collecting dust in the guild warehouse, they can help strengthen our guild members. As our members grow stronger, the guild can earn even more resources. Using these weapons isn't a waste at all, Shifeng said, smiling. Alright, have our people set these ballistas up quickly. When he had been Shadow's guild leader in the past, he too had treated war weapons like precious treasure, not daring to use them casually. After all, those weapons had been irreplaceable. However, that wasn't the case now. Since they could produce these war weapons, there was no reason to stockpile them in the guild warehouse. Using them to strengthen the guild was a wiser decision. Particularly now that Zero Wings core members were over level 40, with some of the guild's upper echelons so close to level 50, they could challenge their Tier 2 promotion quests sooner if the guild helped them level quickly. As Tier 2 players, they'd be more help to the guild than these miniature ballistas. For a moment, everyone felt touched by Shifeng's words. While other guilds' upper echelons wrung their members dry, Shifeng used the guild's most precious resources to help them grow stronger. A short moment later, a row of 50 miniature ballistas were lined up a short distance away from the tattered ramparts. Even capturing a city would be easy with so many war weapons. Then Shifeng summoned a demon with the Bible of Darkness. Now that Shifeng had been promoted to a Tier 2 sword master, he could summon a Tier 3 demon without the assistance of items or skills. He no longer needed to force the demon into becoming a mindless puppet either. After the massive demon gate appeared, an 8-meter-tall demon emerged. 2 crimson horns grew from its forehead, and it carried a spear covered in emerald fire. Purgatory Demon, Dark Creature, Demon. Level 64. HP 24, 000, 000/24, 000, 000. As expected of our guild leader. He can even summon a Tier 3 demon. Summoners would die from envy if they knew about that item. Zero Wings members were further awed by Shifeng after watching him summon the Tier 3 Purgatory Demon. Generally, large guilds reserved Tier 3 summoning scrolls as trump cards. They wouldn't even sell these scrolls for thousands of gold. Shifeng hadn't actually used a scroll, of course. Rather, he had used an ancient book. Tools were different from magic scrolls. While magic scrolls were one-time use items, tools could be used repeatedly. Hence, tools of the same rank and category were worth dozens of times more than their magic scroll counterparts. The Purgatory Demon will attract the orc's attention. Healers keep the Purgatory Demon alive. As for those responsible for controlling the miniature ballistas, prioritize the orc captains. MTs protect the ballistas. Shifeng commanded once his team was almost ready. If he sent level 40+ players to face these orcs, their attacks would only annoy the creatures without the magic tower's buff. The only way they could deal enough damage was to employ the miniature ballistas. If not for the miniature ballistas, he wouldn't have dared to lead this team here. Suddenly, the Purgatory Demon flapped its massive wings and in the blink of an eye, hovered above the ramparts. It then used the Tier 3 skill Flame Shower. Among the demon's Tier 3 skills, Flame Shower had largest AoE range. Although it wasn't particularly effective against monsters, it was enough to pull the orcs aggro. Fire rained down in a 100-yard radius. The Orc Sentinels only received around minus 20,000 damage, while the Orc Captains sustained half that. The damage was negligible to these Orcs. The Orcs on the ramparts raised their bows and fired at the Purgatory Demon. Fire! Shifeng commanded. Immediately, the 50 miniature ballistas fired a volley of exploding arrows from 500 yards away from the ramparts. At this distance, Zero Wings members would still receive EXP as the monsters died, and the Great Lord ranked Orc captains would have difficulty dodging the attacks. Shoo! 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 A series of fiery lights bombarded the ramparts. Damages of up to minus 160,000 appeared above an Orc captain that attacked the Purgatory Demon. In the blink of an eye, this Orc captain lost nearly 8 million HP. Moreover, due to the arrow's armor penetration, the Orc captain sustained severe injuries, decreasing its combat power. Although the damage was impressive, each volley cost 1 gold, 50 silver. Even for experts, it was as much as 2 or 3 days net income. Meanwhile, Shifeng controlled the Purgatory Demon to use the Tier 3 single-target skill, Onslaught against the Orc captain, dealing over minus 400,000 and reclaiming its aggro. As the Orcs retaliated, the Purgatory Demon flew about, dodging over 90% of the attacks. Even when struck, the dozens of healers who had moved close to the bottom of the ramparts responded immediately, maintaining the demon's HP above a safe threshold. Following which, Zero Wings members launched volley after volley of exploding arrows. The first Orc captain soon fell from the wall. A level 77 Great Lord was already worth a frightening amount of EXP. Including the bonus EXP from defeating a higher-level opponent, everyone's experience bars increased by a noticeable amount despite sharing it among 1,000 players. It gave so much EXP. This is amazing. I'd have to grind for dozens of minutes to get this much EXP. Everyone was elated. Normally, it took a long time to kill a Great Lord of the same level, but they had taken 30 seconds or so to defeat the level 77 Great Lord. Moreover, once the Orc captain died, it dropped several items. However, as they were still engaged in battle, no one moved towards the loot. After killing the first Orc captain, the team focused their fire on the other Orc captains. In such a way, one Orc captain after another fell from the ramparts. By the time they had annihilated the 20-plus captains, many level 42 players had leveled to 43. As for Aqua Rose, Alluring Summer, and the other upper echelons, they had reached level 49, they were only one level away from level 50 now. Chapter 1363, Dispute Between Towns. Chapter 1363, Dispute Between Towns. Now that they had eliminated the Orc captains on the ramparts, dealing with the Orc sentinels had become much easier. They didn't even need a full volley of exploding arrows to kill a sentinel. The team on had to watch from afar. Only the healers were a little worn out as they had focused on healing the Purgatory Demon from time to time. With the miniature ballistas firing one volley after another, it took less than half an hour to clear out the Orcs on the wall. Although the Orc sentinels hadn't given as much EXP as the captains, everyone's experience bars rose by a sizable chunk. Their leveling speed was dozens of times faster than normal. This leveling speed is amazing. At this rate, we'll level up again in a few more hours. Zero Wings members were ecstatic. They hadn't experienced such astounding leveling speed since obtaining their Tier 1 classes. Only sustaining this leveling speed required a large number of exploding arrows. Of course, EXP wasn't the only thing the Zero Wing Legion had obtained. There was also the items scattered above the ramparts. Following which, Shifeng jumped onto the wall to collect the loot while the rest of his guild members pushed the miniature ballistas forward. The benefits of pioneering a new map are wonderful. The drop rate is much higher than usual. Shifeng was inwardly astonished as he picked up the loot. After reaching level 50, monsters' drop rate in God's domain would decrease drastically. A level 50-plus chieftain might not drop as much as elite monsters right now. However, contrary to expectations, the loot dropped by the Orcs was considerably good. Over 8 gold had dropped in coins alone. There were also 20-plus level 70 common weapons and pieces of equipment, which could be dismantled for raw materials. 3 level 70 bronze weapons and pieces of equipment and various ordinary materials had dropped as well. All of those items were only the level 75 Orc Sentinels loot. The Orc Captain's loot was far more impressive. In total, the Orc Captains had dropped over 10 level 70 mysterious iron weapons and pieces of equipment. If sold, each piece of equipment could easily fetch 5 gold or more, While the weapons could go for at least 10 gold, they were far more valuable than mysterious iron weapons and equipment below level 50. The orc captains also dropped 2 pieces of level 70 secret silver equipment, a pair of mage boots and a pair of plate gloves. Each of these items could easily fetch over 100 gold. The orc captains had also dropped high-ranking potions and tier 2 magic scrolls. Overall, the loot's value more or less made up for the exploding arrow's cost. An advanced recipe fragment. As Feng organized the orc captain's loot, he noticed half of a tattered piece of paper. When he clicked to check its description, he could not help his elation. Magic Soul Potion Recipe Fragment. In God's domain, advanced rank recipes and designs weren't easy to purchase. Moreover, most advanced recipes and designs dropped as fragments. Players rarely found complete recipes and designs. On the market, advanced recipes and designs generally sold for a minimum of 500 gold, though this was only in the case of ordinary recipes and designs. Players couldn't even buy valuable ones with coins, and people generally wanted items of equal value. Feng had never expected to obtain the Magic Soul Potion recipe, which was an extremely rare drop in the morning battlefield. The Magic Soul Potion was a rare potion. It was an advanced potion that increased the user's basic attributes by 10% and magic resistance by 100% for 1 hour. Unlike the potions that gave a fixed amount of magic resistance, the Magic Soul Potion would never become outdated. Even after players had reached level 200, the potion had been incredibly popular in the past. Hence, many large guilds had often grinded in the morning battlefield. Unfortunately, the recipe's drop rate was abysmal. In the end, very few guilds had obtained the complete recipe. Could this be a benefit of pioneering the map? Feng wondered. If he could obtain a complete Magic Soul Potion recipe, it would be a great help to guild members when raiding large-scale team dungeons. Moreover, they wouldn't need to prepare as much to raid the Frost King with the Magic Soul Potion. They could start raiding the boss once the team's basic attributes met the requirements. Guild leader, has something good dropped? Aqua Rose asked when she saw Feng's smile. It's certainly not bad. Feng then shared the loot information in the team chat. When the Legion members saw the list, they couldn't help but gasp. We killed all those great lords and chieftains, yet we got so few items in return. Guild leader, why don't we go somewhere else? We'll only lose money if we stay here. Blackie and the others suggested. If they continued at this rate, although their levels might increase very quickly, the guild would suffer for it. While it is true that we're not compensating for our losses, if we can gather 4 more Magic Soul Potion recipe fragments, we'll earn back everything we've lost and more, Feng said, chuckling nonchalantly. He proceeded to lead everyone deeper into the morning battlefield. In reality, their losses hadn't been that great. After all, he also had the Soul Orb, which allowed him to absorb souls from Great Lord rank monsters and above. He could turn every 30 souls he absorbed into a soul crystal. He had obtained one from their first slaughter, lessening their losses considerably. Hearing Feng's words, the Legion regained its motivation as they silently swore to complete the Magic Soul Potion recipe. As the team ventured farther into the morning battlefield, they encountered far more orcs. Their strength continued to increase as well. Unlike the first orc army, which had only consisted of great lords and chieftains, the following armies included lords and high lords as well. Fortunately, Feng could summon an additional tier 3 demon after 3 hours. This time he had called forth a magical class demon. With 1 melee and 1 magical class demon, the demons could barely weather the orc army's attacks, buying Zero Wings members enough time to kill the high-tiered bosses. After grinding for nearly 9 hours, Feng and the others finally left the morning battlefield's outer region, reaching the inner area. Throughout their expedition, the previously level 42 and 43 players had gained 1 or more levels. Now, most of the Legion's members were level 45. If they chose, they could monopolize all top 100 spots on Starmoon Kingdom's ranking list. Aqua Rose and the others who were level 49 hadn't gained any additional levels due to the massive amount of EXP they needed to cross the hurdle. Even so, they were not too far from level 50 either. As for the Magic Soul Potions recipe fragments, due to Feng's continuous use of Divine Providence, the team had gathered 4 fragments by the time they reached the inner region. While the Legion explored the morning battlefield, Stone Forest Town's repairs had almost completed. The battle arena had resumed its normal operation, and more players than ever before had gathered in the town. The town's player population had already passed the 1 million threshold. Among these players, many were merchant players and adventurer teams originating from other kingdoms and empires. All of these players had come to attend the candlelight auction tomorrow, which would include Zero Wing's private houses and shops as the main attractions. Overall, Stone Forest Town's prospects were impressive. In fact, Phoenix Rain, Zero Wing's collaborator, had reaped a massive profit from the situation. Currently, all the virtual products in her virtual store sold like hotcakes. Among the products, the most popular were the furniture and fashion coats made from wood and cloth in God's domain. Meanwhile, Red Iron Town had also attracted a lot of attention in Starmoon Kingdom. Red Iron Town was home to the first player-operated auction house in Starmoon Kingdom. The town's popularity among NPCs had risen considerably due to its auction house, so much so that Red Iron Town had been promoted to intermediate rank. Now Heaven's Burial even surpassed the Star Alliance. Moreover, Heaven's Burial had recently announced that it would hold an auction for Red Iron Town's private houses and shops at the same time as the candlelight auction. Almost everyone on Starmoon Kingdom's official forums discussed the situation. Which town would they decide to develop in? After all, both towns had advantages. With Red Iron Town's rise to glory, many players who had been interested in Stone Forest Town's houses and shops began to hesitate. At this time, Melancholic Smile contacted Shifeng and asked, "Guild leader, should we hold the auction earlier than planned? If we hold it at the same time as Heaven's Burial, it'll be difficult to encourage high bids." Interesting. So, they've already started working with Beast Emperor? When Shifeng saw Red Iron Town's auction house, he instantly understood what was happening. After all, the auction house design wasn't easy to obtain. Shifeng could not help but laugh at the situation as he said, "Fine. Since they want a competition, let's give it to them." Chapter 1364, The Price of Playing with Fire. Chapter 1364, The Price of Playing with Fire. Guild leader, you intend to compete against them? Melancholic Smile was startled when she heard Shifeng's words. Before this, Red Iron Town had become quite popular among the kingdom's players due to its strategic location and its connection to Evernight City. Once Heaven's Burial opened the Red Iron Mine to the public, it had attracted even more players and adventurer teams. Now the town also had an auction house, allowing players to sell their items there while paying a cheaper processing fee than in the auction houses in NPC cities. Furthermore, the town had received its promotion to intermediate rank, able to accommodate even more players. If they truly wanted to compete with Red Iron Town, they'd have to lower their asking prices for Stone Forest Town's private houses and shops. The other Zero Wing upper echelons might not know the guild's top secrets and current financial state, but Melancholic Smile, who managed a large portion of Zero Wing's affairs and transactions, did. Right now, Zero Wing urgently needed 35,000 gold to cover the additional expenses incurred while constructing the guild's new city. Without the reimbursement fee, the city's construction would halt. Moreover, the longer they delayed paying off this debt, the higher the fee would become. This was the true reason for auctioning off Stone Forest Town's private houses and shops. Now that Stone Forest Town had lost its advantages over Red Iron Town, competing with Heaven's Burial wasn't wise. Since Heaven's Burial wants to play as Starmoon Kingdom's #1 guild, Zero Wing cannot back down, Shifeng declared, laughing. However, since they want to play, let's raise the stakes. Announce to the public that any player or adventurer team that purchases a private house or shop from Heaven's Burial will be banned from all of Zero Wing's towns and cities. Guild leader. Isn't that going a little too far? Shifeng's words shocked Melancholic Smile. Such a declaration was tantamount to declaring war against Heaven's Burial. Now that Stone Forest Town didn't have a clear advantage, such a move was far too risky. Relax. Just announce it. I'll have someone bring you the recipe for the magic soul potion soon. Have the guild's alchemists produce them as quickly as possible. Craft as many as you can, Shifeng instructed calmly. Magic soul potion, All right, Melancholic Smile nodded helplessly. Since Shifeng had given the command, she could only manage Stone Forest Town to the best of her ability. Although she was somewhat opposed to Shifeng's decision, she too was a little miffed at Heaven's Burial. It wouldn't be a bad idea to use this opportunity to put the guild in its place. This way, Zero Wing would secure its position as Starmoon Kingdom's overlord. Following which, Melancholic Smile disconnected the call and organized her subordinates to see to the necessary preparations. She also posted Shifeng's declaration on the kingdom's official forums. The announcement flabbergasted the players that heatedly debated the two towns. This is crazy. Zero Wing has lost its mind. Heaven's Burial is merely provoking the guild. Does Zero Wing need to take things this far? All hail Zero Wing. This is what you get for provoking Starmoon Kingdom's #1 guild for no reason. Heaven's Burial's upper echelons will cry with regret. I agree. When Heaven's Burial's upper echelons see this message, they'll regret their provocation. Of all the things they could do, they had to steal traffic from Stone Forest Town. Not only will they fail, but they might have spelled doom for their town. This is going to be interesting. I wonder which of them will survive in the end? Shortly after Melancholic Smile created her post, it had been upvoted to the top of the forums. Ordinary players were more than happy to watch such an interesting development. After all, neither the guild town's private houses nor the shops had anything to do with them. The various adventurer teams and merchant players, however, had a different reaction to the news. This was especially true for the various adventurer teams that had already garrisoned in Red Iron Town. When they saw the post, they turned deathly pale. Zero Wing is insane. Why are they being so desperate? Although they had already set up in Red Iron Town, they still visited Stone Forest Town's battle arena to train and improve their combat techniques. Moreover, if they obtained the championship in the Battle Arenas tournament, they'd have the opportunity to learn a secret technique. But Zero Wing's announcement had destroyed their chances. After all, even large guilds' core members had a very low chance of learning a secret technique, much less adventurer teams' independent players. They would also lose the opportunity to purchase the items from the town's wandering merchant NPCs. The various adventurer teams that had garrisoned in Red Iron Town began to resent Heaven's Burial. Of all the things the guild could do, it had to play with fire and provoke Zero Wing. Now their adventurer teams had been caught in the crossfire. 5 short minutes after Melancholic Smile announced Zero Wing's intentions, over a dozen well-known adventurer teams in Red Iron Town declared their intent to withdraw. The merchant players who had considered purchasing shops in the town had begun to hesitate as well. Although Red Iron Town was prosperous, it was no match for Stone Forest Town. Most importantly, Stone Forest Town had the money-making machine, the Battle Arena. With the Battle Arena, the town attracted countless experts. The top adventurer teams in Red Iron Town also began to panic. Zero Wing. Do you really think we need your Battle Arena to improve? Zero Wing thinks too highly of itself. Such tactics are only useful against well-known adventurer teams. Although the post had somewhat shaken the 3 top adventurer teams, they were still confident of their own strength. Even without the Battle Arena, they could find areas to train their combat standards. Moreover, they were confident that with their assistance, Heaven's Burial could nurture Red Iron Town to surpass Stone Forest Town. Meanwhile, in the morning battlefield, Aqua Rose, Alluring Smile, Blackie, and the other upper echelons had reached level 50 while Shifeng had conversed with Melancholic Smile. Wonderful. I finally reached level 50. Blackie laughed when he saw the golden glow envelop his body. I can finally challenge my Tier 2 promotion quest. The rest of these core members were also excited. Currently, every expert's goal was to obtain their Tier 2 class. This was especially true for Aqua Rose and Zero Wing's other upper echelons, as they knew Shifeng had already completed his. They had also witnessed Shifeng's battle against Evil Fire, so they were fully aware of how powerful a Tier 2 class was. It was on a completely different level from a Tier 1 class. Since you've reached level 50, you can go and challenge your Tier 2 promotion quests now. When Shifeng saw that Aqua Rose and some others had reached level 50, he took a fist-sized stone tablet from his bag. It was none other than the Sea God's Legacy, which Shifeng had obtained in the Sea Dragon's secret land. Smiling, he said, I have a special legacy. I'm sure you're all aware of Hidden Class's flaws, so I won't go into detail. Whoever wants to class change into a hidden class can apply with me. There are a total of 10 slots available. 10 slots. Shifeng's words rendered Aqua Rose and the others speechless. Every player in God's domain sought to obtain a hidden class. God's domain's various superpowers constantly tried to obtain high-rank legacies. Unfortunately, even they had only gotten their hands on a few. Yet Shifeng had 10 legacy slots. Moreover, the instant Shifeng had revealed the Sea God's legacy, it seemed as if the space around them had frozen. They felt the tablet radiate an intense pressure, so much so that they felt a bit sluggish. One could easily imagine how extraordinary the stone tablet was. The legacy was definitely a high rank. Chapter 1365, Extravagant Assault. Chapter 1365, Extravagant Assault. Who's up to the challenge? Shifeng asked as he looked at Aqua Rose and the others. Although he had held on to the sea god's legacy for a while, he had kept it hidden in his bag due to its level 50 requirement. Now that Aqua Rose and the others had reached level 50, this was a good opportunity for them to take the challenge and obtain the legacy. Other players would likely need to improve their equipment after reaching level 50, but Aqua Rose and the other upper echelons already wore complete Tier 1 set equipment. Moreover, Aqua Rose and the others had consumed the Moonlight Fruit, their physiques improving considerably. At their current standards, improving their combat power would take a lot of time and effort. Hence, this was the best time for them to attempt the class change. If one of them obtained the Sea God's legacy, Zero Wing would have another peak expert. During naval combat, the Sea God's legacy player's performance would be even more impressive. Guild leader, what rank is the legacy? Aqua Rose asked curiously. Among the 10 legacy slots, 9 are for the Sea God's Guard legacy. At its weakest, it's an advanced legacy. The last slot is the Sea God's legacy. It's the strongest, even superior to peak legacies. Whether or not you obtain these legacies depends on your strength, Shifeng explained. Even superior to peak legacies? Everyone gasped, their eyes shining as they gazed at the legacy tablet. Even advanced legacies were beyond most players' reach, yet among Shifeng's 10 legacy slots, the weakest was advanced rank, and the strongest was superior to a peak legacy. If news of this went public, it would cause a huge commotion throughout God's domain. It might even tempt superpowers to move against Zero Wing. Thoughts of obtaining these legacies flooded these players' minds. As for Alluring Summer and Cola, they glanced at each other and smiled bitterly. If not for the Dragon Soul Potion, they too could have tried for the Sea God's legacy. Since Violet Cloud already had the Astromancer hidden class, she didn't mind missing the opportunity to obtain the Sea God's legacy. Following which, Shifeng sent Aqua Rose and the others who were up to the challenge into the legacy space. As for Violet Cloud, Alluring Summer and Cola, Shifeng gave them the Magic Soul Potion recipe and sent them back to White River City for their promotion and class change quests, respectively. Once Aqua Rose and the others completed their class change, Shifeng intended to claim the Manatite Mine in the Sea of Death, solving Zero Wing's magic crystal problem. The crystals from the Stoneclaw Mountains, the Battle Arena and Team Dungeons simply weren't enough for the guild's expenditures. He also had the Ring of Gospel, which he needed to give a frightening number of magic crystals each week. Shifeng had considered securing the Manatite Mine earlier, but the island it was on was too dangerous. Current players simply couldn't contend with the monsters there. Hence, he had put the matter on hold. However, if Aqua Rose and the others obtained the Sea God's legacies, they could claim the mine. Only the various superpowers had qualified to hold the Manatite Mine in the past. If Zero Wing had their own, it would boost the guild's development by leaps and bounds. Quickly, Shifeng suppressed the excitement in his heart. Completing the Ancient Orc Empire quest was his current priority. It was the reason he had led this legion to the morning battlefield. Following which, Shifeng led Zero Wing's members and cleared out the orc armies in their path, slowly advancing towards the Ancient Orc Empire's capital. Once in the morning battlefield's inner region, the legion encountered far more, stronger orcs. On average, these orcs were above level 80. If not for the miniature ballistas, they wouldn't have been able to continue. After another 3 hours or so grinding, Shifeng and the others finally reached the ancient city's ruins. As the capital of an empire that had once shaken the God's Domain continent, one could still feel the city's might even after the corrosion of time. The city walls alone were 50 meters tall, and the main gates depicted over a dozen massive divine figures. Numerous high-rank buildings filled the city. Among them, the most awe-inspiring was the ancient Orc Empire's palace. It loomed like a massive mountain, and one could easily overlook the entire capital from the top of the palace. Despite having fallen to ruin, the capital's mana was far denser than elsewhere. Even from outside, Zero Wing's players could feel it. However, compared to those factors, the number of orcs inside the city was shocking. The Legion was stupefied. The ancient city should have been lost to history, yet Zero Wing's members felt as if they had just walked into a current orc city. Orcs constantly passed through the city's main gates, and those that entered the city seemed like well-trained soldiers. Their auras and levels were far superior to the orcs the Legion had encountered on the way here. Even the lowest-leveled orc was level 80. Chieftain-ranked orcs were everywhere as well. From time to time, these players also spotted level 85 Grand Lords leading squads as they patrolled the walls. Their eyes shone with wisdom. Guild leader, you don't intend to attack this city, right? Zero Wings members gulped as they stared at the ancient city before them. They were the elite among Zero Wings elites, and even the weakest among them could reach the Trial Tower's 5th floor. They were quite confident in capturing a dark town with 50 miniature ballistas, but as they stared at the scene before them, they couldn't help but panic. They could already see tens of thousands of orcs, including at least 20 level 85 Grand Lords and more than 200 Great Lords. There was doubt that more orcs lay beyond the city walls. This wasn't a place for current players. Moreover, orcs weren't like wild beasts. These monsters possessed a certain degree of intellect. If they attacked even one of these orcs, they might aggro every orc in sight. Even with 2 level 64 tier 3 demons on their side, they had little hope against these powerful orcs. Why are so many monsters here? Shi Feng, who stood at the foot of a mountain, was similarly stunned as he stared at the imperial capital before him. Is this because of the quest? When he had come here in the past, only a few orc tribes had lived in the area. Now, however, the ancient city had a large orc population. But after giving the matter some thought, Shi Feng found the situation reasonable. After all, this was an SSS rank commission. The system wouldn't make it easy to obtain the disintegration axe. Otherwise, Starmoon Kingdom wouldn't have failed all 3 of the freebie SSS rank commissions. We won't be able to force our way through the front gates. We'll have to lure the orcs out. Glancing around the ancient city, Shi Feng discarded his plan of a direct assault. Unless he had a team of 3,000 level 80 elite players and a large stock war weapons, clearing out the orcs on the city walls would be impossible. With their current combatants, they had no chance of defeating these orcs. However, after going through great lengths to reach the city, Shi Feng refused to give up without a fight. Lure the orcs. When everyone heard of Shi Feng's crazy plan, they wondered if they had misheard him. Whether or not they could lure these orcs without dying, how were they supposed to enter the city if they succeeded? However, Shi Feng didn't offer an explanation as he began to distribute tasks. The imperial capital had 4 entrances, all of which were heavily guarded. Forcing their way in would be suicidal. Even the tier 3 demons would die instantly in a head-on charge. After all, the level gap was too massive. There were also so many high-tiered monsters defending the entrances. If they wanted to lure these orcs out of the city, they had to use the miniature ballistas. The miniature ballistas had a maximum range of 3,000 yards. Even level 85 Grand Lords would need some time to cross such a distance. Shi Feng would have Zero Wings members use the miniature ballistas to lure the orcs from all 4 entrances. However, they wouldn't target the orcs on the walls but the orcs inside the city. Fortunately, he had the 7 Luminaries ring. As long as he input the correct coordinates, he could use space movement to infiltrate the imperial capital. He would never use such a strategy to enter a normal capital, but the ancient Orc Empire's main city had long since fallen into ruin. It was no longer protected by magic arrays. Aside from the Orc Palace, which was strengthened by divine runes that would prevent him from teleporting into the building, he could teleport anywhere within the city. The orcs inside the city were the only problem. Even if he were familiar with the terrain, he would undoubtedly die if he teleported into a group of orcs. He needed them to leave the city first. Only then would he have an opportunity to infiltrate the Orc Palace. Following which, Shi Feng selected 16 miniature ballistas with the least amount of durability remaining, stationing them near the 4 entrances. He then gave the players manning the miniature ballistas Tier 1 instantaneous movement scrolls. This way, these players could leave the battlefield as soon as the orcs left the city. They could then find a safe location and use a return scroll to leave the morning battlefield. He had the rest of his legion take the remaining miniature ballistas back to Stone Forest Town and rest. Although this plan would sacrifice 16 miniature ballistas, it would be a worthwhile trade if he successfully entered the Orc Palace. When Zero Wings members heard Shi Feng's crazy plan, they thought it was extravagant. Shi Feng wanted to trade 16 miniature ballistas for a single opportunity. Throughout God's domain, Shi Feng was likely the only player mad enough to do something like this. The other superpowers guild leaders would never make such a gamble. Time passed quickly. Under Shifeng's command, the 16 miniature ballistas moved into position. Guild leader, our side is ready. All right. Begin. Once everyone was prepared, Shifeng adjusted his position and gave the command. Immediately, the 16 miniature ballistas launched exploding arrows at the ancient capital's walls. The exploding arrows passed through the walls easily. Before the orcs on the walls could even react, the exploding arrows exploded inside the city. Boom. A series of explosions shook the air. Deafening roars then echoed from beyond the city walls. What? Mythic monsters are inside the city? Shifeng inwardly rejoiced when he saw 3 figures appear above the city and charge towards the miniature ballistas. Had he snuck into the city recklessly, he would have lost his life. Shortly after these mythic-ranked orcs left the city, the orcs inside the capital went into a frenzy too, surged out of the city. There's my chance. Seeing the orcs pour out of the city and the 3 mythic orcs more than 200 yards away from its walls, Shifeng activated space movement and leaped into the spatial tear that formed before him. After vanishing from the foot of the mountain, he appeared before the orcs' palace's main entrance. Chapter 1366, Ancient Treasure Chest. Chapter 1366, Ancient Treasure Chest. The instant Shifeng appeared before the towering palace, he immediately sensed 2 sources of killing intent locking onto him. If an ordinary player were standing in his place, the pressure definitely would have suffocated them. Sure enough, the game won't let players enter the palace so easily. Shifeng glanced at the 2 stone statues situated on each side of the palace's main entrance. The killing intent he felt came from none other than these 2 statues. Originally, he thought that once he had lured away the orcs surrounding the palace, he could enter the palace undetected. However, his distraction attempt had failed to draw these 2 gargoyles from their stations, as they simply stood guard before the palace's entrance. Gargoyle, Demonic Beast, Great Lord. Level 85. HP 90, 000, 000/90, 000, 000. The instant these 2 gargoyles awakened, they let loose an angry roar that echoed throughout the entire ancient city. Their cries immediately notified the orcs, which had left the city to deal with the invaders, that there was an intruder at the palace. The orcs promptly turned around and raced back. Damn it. Shifeng promptly activated Wind Rider and dashed into the palace. The terrain inside the orc palace was complex. Moreover, the interior was slightly cramped. There he would not have to take the full brunt of the orc army. In the next moment, Shifeng transformed into a streak of light as he disappeared into the inner section of the palace. As for the awakened gargoyles, they flapped the wings on their backs and chased after him. Guild leader not good. The 3 mythic-ranked orcs returned to the city right away after destroying the miniature ballistas. A Zero-Wing member who was hiding at the foot of a mountain, reported hurriedly in the team chat when he saw the mythic orcs flying back to the city. Already? Shifeng frowned slightly. He then replied, I got it. You guys should leave this place now. Although the gargoyles were currently chasing after him, after he activated Wind Rider, he was much faster than they were. Moreover, now that he had entered the palace, with the interior of the palace akin to a maze, even if he couldn't throw the gargoyles off his trail, the gargoyles wouldn't be able to do anything to him within a short period. The only problem was the 3 mythic orcs. If they spotted him, he definitely wouldn't even have a chance to escape. He needed to locate the disintegration axe before those mythic orcs discovered him. If he failed in his attempt this time, the difficulty of his next attempt at entering the palace would no doubt be much higher. Fortunately, Shifeng was still relatively familiar with the palace's terrain. Without faltering, he rapidly wound closer and closer to the palace's underground treasury. Roar! As Shifeng neared the underground treasury, the 2 gargoyles grew enraged, continuously letting out one roar after another while also spitting out gray breaths. Everything that came in contact with this breath was immediately petrified. Players could not block this move, only dodge. When Wind Rider's duration was close to running out, Shifeng was still more than halfway to the underground treasury. Meanwhile, like navigators, the 2 gargoyles constantly reported their exact locations to the orcs inside the city. If I don't get rid of these 2 gargoyles, those 3 mythic orcs will most likely find me in short order. A deep frown formed on Shifeng's face as he looked at the 2 gargoyles dogging his heels. He finally understood why nobody managed to complete this commission in the past. Anyone who wished to complete it needed sufficient combat power to capture the ancient city. However, doing so was easier said than done. Although he had managed to get into the palace using a trick, if he did not kill the 2 gargoyles chasing after him, it would be only a matter of time before he had to face off against the 3 mythic orcs. However, even if the 2 gargoyles simply stood still and did nothing, he wouldn't be able to kill either one of them due to their ridiculously high HPs. Just as Shi Feng was trying to think of a way to deal with the gargoyles, he suddenly discovered a forked path ahead of him. Meanwhile, the 2 branches headed in opposite directions. A forked path? Shi Feng's lips curled up slightly when he saw the fork ahead. Although killing the gargoyles was beyond him, throwing them off his trail would be sufficient to achieve his goal. As long as he could escape the gargoyles' perception range, the 2 great lords would no longer be able to locate him. Following which Shi Feng activated Phantom Kill. He and his doppelganger then split up, each of them taking one of the paths ahead. However, the path Shi Feng himself chose did not lead to the palace's treasury but to the underground library. The gargoyles had long since locked on to Shi Feng's presence, so they completely ignored the doppelganger as they continued in pursuit of the real body. Soon, the distance separating Shi Feng and his doppelganger widened. 100 yards, 300 yards, 500 yards. When Wind Rider's duration ended and Shi Feng landed back on the ground, the 2 gargoyles immediately moved to surround him. They then revealed sinister expressions as they stalked up to Shi Feng step by step. 700 yards, this should be enough. Looking at the gargoyles that were already preparing to assault him, Shi Feng silently guessed the distance between him and his doppelganger. In God's domain, different monsters had different perception ranges. According to statistics, setting aside those with very high intellect, monsters at the Great Lord rank generally had a maximum perception range of 500 to 600 yards, while mythic monsters was between 1,000 and 1,500 yards. Thus, when players were targeted by mythic monsters, escape was generally impossible. As for the gargoyles, due to them being demonic beasts, they could be considered relatively sensitive monsters. Hence, their maximum perception range should exceed 500 yards. As a precaution, Shi Feng chose to put at least 700 yards between himself and his doppelganger before swapping positions. In the next moment, the 2 gargoyles let loose angry roars as they spat out gray whirlwinds from their mouths. In this cramped space, it was practically impossible for Shi Feng to avoid the whirlwinds. Replace. Shi Feng directly used his doppelganger replace skill, switching positions with his distant doppelganger. At the same time, he also had his doppelganger activate defensive blade to buy him as much time as possible. You guys have fun with my doppelganger. Shi Feng smiled faintly when he appeared in the other pathway. He could tell that the killing intent locked on him had already disappeared. He then activated Windwalk and dashed towards the underground treasury. Although there were no longer any monsters on his tail, Shi Feng did not dare to be careless. He immediately activated Omniscient Eyes to constantly scan his surroundings. The reason he had done so was the increase in density of traps as one got closer to the palace's treasury, and accidentally triggering even one of them might result in death. When Shi Feng had come here in the past, the Orc Palace had long since been explored by other players. Back then, the traps inside the palace were mostly disabled already. He had only visited it to try his luck and see if he could come across any treasure chests. After all, treasure chests spawned randomly. Meanwhile, the chances of stumbling across a treasure chest in a location like a palace was much higher than elsewhere. Gem? What? There really is a treasure chest. Shortly after Shi Feng headed off to the treasury, he discovered a small, secret room in a corridor leading to a small courtyard, and placed inside the secret room was a treasure chest. I don't think I saw this secret room in the past. However, the magic barrier set up to protect this room really is complex. I wonder what rank the treasure chest stored inside is. Omniscient Eyes only allowed him to perceive the shape of the treasure chest. He could not determine the quality and color of the materials used to create the treasure chest itself. Following which, Shi Feng walked over to the secret room. Fortunately, no traps were set up inside the secret room. There was only a magic barrier that concealed the room from the eyes of players, so there was no danger whatsoever. If he did not take away such a treasure chest, then he really would be doing a disservice to himself. The concealment technique used is really brilliant. Not only is there a magic barrier to hide the room's presence, but there is also a physical mechanism hiding it. Even an expert in cracking traps would not be able to notice this room. No wonder nobody managed to discover this place in the past, Shi Feng muttered in astonishment. Unfortunately, even if the room was skillfully hidden, such trickery was no use against omniscient eyes. Breaking through the magic barrier was a piece of cake. Shi Feng just activated Flame Burst and sent 10 or so attacks at the wall concealing the room. Once the barrier was shattered, the real wall appeared before him. He then pulled the chain hidden by the foot of the wall. In the next moment, the wall slowly rose, revealing the secret room. The instant the secret room was opened, Shi Feng felt a dense wave of mana washing over him, giving him a pleasant feeling. His mind also felt refreshed. In the next moment, however, a terrifying aura enveloped his body, making even movement difficult. After Shi Feng saw the true nature of this treasure chest, he could not help his surprise. An ancient treasure chest. Chapter 1367, God's Possession. Chapter 1367, God's Possession. Shi Feng's breathing grew short as he looked at the pitch-black treasure chest, which was covered in a thick layer of dust, sitting inside the room. An ancient treasure chest. This was something he had only heard about in rumors, but an ancient treasure chest was a treasure chest handed down from the ancient gods. Although the treasure chest seemed to be made of black iron, in reality, it was made of obsidian crystal, one of the materials that were second to only the seven luminaries crystal. Every ancient treasure chest was worth an unimaginable amount of money in God's domain because they contained the possession of gods. Rumors had it that even the most inferior item one could obtain from an ancient treasure chest could rival those from an epic treasure chest, while better ones could rival even the items from legendary treasure chests. Meanwhile, the rarity of ancient treasure chests was on par with epic treasure chests. Shi Feng had only ever heard about them and never personally seen one before. According to rumors, one could come across an ancient treasure chest only in extremely dangerous ancient ruins. He never imagined that he would actually find one in the ancient Orc Empire. So this is an ancient treasure chest? It really is amazing. When Shi Feng arrived before the ancient treasure chest, he felt as if his entire body was about to be crushed. As the ancient treasure chest was an item personally created by a god, in addition to the divine runes carved by a god on the treasure chest, the closer Shi Feng approached the ancient treasure chest, the stronger the divine might he experienced. Now that he was standing right in front of the ancient treasure chest, it felt as if the blood inside his body had turned to lead. Right now, his body was so sluggish that even a Lord-ranked monster of the same level could kill him easily. If a Tier 1 player were standing in his place right now, they would have already collapsed to the ground and become paralyzed. However, this was also the reason why the ancient treasure chest was not locked. The divine might the treasure chest exuded was the best protection. The instant Shi Feng activated the ancient treasure chest, the divine runes carved on it started glowing. Immediately, the mana inside the secret room rampaged as the treasure chest sucked it in. This phenomenon continued for several seconds before ceasing. By the time the treasure chest stopped absorbing the ambient mana, the pressure it exuded had also grown significantly. Only one item? Shi Feng could not help falling speechless as he looked at the pitch-black ring floating inside the treasure chest. The ancient treasure chest's size was equivalent to a large wardrobe, yet the space inside the treasure chest was only the size of a basketball. However, Shi Feng did not pay heed to this contradiction for too long as he picked up the pitch-black ring and inspected it. Cannot be appraised. So this is an item left behind by a god. No matter how he tried to examine the ring, as if the ring was just a stone on the side of the road, it revealed no information whatsoever. This was the first time Shi Feng had come across an item that could not be appraised in God's domain. Even when he obtained the Destroyer of Immortality before, when he first tried appraising the item, he had at least managed to get a name from it, albeit an extremely vague one. If not for the shabby ring in his hands being stored inside the ancient treasure chest just a moment ago, he might have treated it as garbage and tossed it aside. After all, the pitch-black ring was simply too ordinary, there was nothing special about it whatsoever. However, although he was unable to appraise it, he had no intention of giving up. After waiting for 10 minutes, he activated omniscient eyes and started appraising the ring once more. What? It still can't be appraised. Just what is this ring? Shi Feng could not help being surprised when he saw the system's response. Until now, omniscient eyes had never failed to appraise an item. Even someone as powerful as Charlene had praised the omniscient eyes before. Yet, now, omniscient eyes was actually ineffective on the pitch-black ring. Meanwhile, there was only one possibility for Omniscient Eyes to give a response of cannot be appraised, and that was because Omniscient Eyes' appraisal rank was still insufficient. He required a stronger appraisal skill. Shifeng could only think of one appraisal skill that surpassed Omniscient Eyes, Eyes of Truth. This was something he had learned from Charlene. However, as to how he could obtain the Eyes of Truth, that he did not know. He could only try asking Charlene about it later on. But before then he couldn't do anything about the pitch-black ring. Following which, Shifeng stored the ring and left the secret room. Compared to identifying the pitch-black ring, completing his quest was more important right now. There were many traps on the way to the underground treasury, and any trap could easily end a player's life. Even a peak assassin would lose their life here if they were not careful. Hence, for Shifeng, who was a swordsman, reaching the treasury was even more difficult. The only choice he had was to rely on Omniscient Eyes to avoid the traps. If he came across an unavoidable trap, then he would use absolute defense to tank it. In the end, Shifeng took several times longer to complete the journey, which originally should have taken only 10 minutes or so. As he neared the treasury, he suddenly received a message from Melancholic Smile. The message was very simple. Some time ago, many evil demons started appearing around White River City and Stone Forest Town. Meanwhile, the evil demons that appeared were all Lord rank and above. Moreover, these evil demons moved with great caution. As soon as they executed an attack in one location, they would immediately move elsewhere, giving the Zero Wing members dispatched no opportunity to surround them. This situation suddenly depressed the number of players wishing to travel to Stone Forest Town significantly. Although Stone Forest Town itself was safe from the invasion of monsters, ordinary players and adventurer teams that did not possess a private house in Stone Forest Town could only get to Stone Forest Town from the nearest NPC town via horse carriage. Meanwhile, although horse carriages were fast, they did not possess any offensive capabilities. Hence, the only fate awaiting ordinary players assaulted by evil demons was death. With the journey to Stone Forest Town so dangerous, many players would naturally give up on going to Stone Forest Town. So Heaven's Burial is no longer even trying to hide that it's colluding with the evil god's temple? Shifeng's complexion darkened. This situation left him with no choice but to complete his quest quickly and return. Even ordinary experts would be no match for Lord-ranked evil demons. Only experts on Aqua Rose's level had a chance against such monsters. However, Aqua Rose and the others were currently challenging their class change quests and promotion quests, so there were no powerful experts stationed in Stone Forest Town right now. Hence, the only way to deal with the evil demons was to surround and kill them in groups. However, the evil demons would flee as soon as they launched an assault, giving no opportunities for Zero Wings members to do anything. Now, only he could do something about this situation. As soon as an evil demon appeared, if he was notified of the coordinates of the assaulted players, he could go to the scene immediately using the 7 Luminaries Ring space movement. However, he had just managed to enter the Orc Palace after going through so much trouble. If he returned before completing his quest, it would be much more difficult to get into the palace again on his next attempt. Following which, Shifeng sent Melancholic Smile a message, telling her to have Zero Wings members form patrol squads and patrol the routes leading to Stone Forest Town for the time being. Although doing so required a lot of manpower, they would be able to suppress the evil demons to a certain extent and prevent them from casually attacking the merchant routes. Time passed quickly. After spending another 2 hours or so traveling inside the palace, Shifeng finally arrived at the hall before the palace's treasury. Inside the spacious hall, which was strengthened by divine runes and magic arrays, an armored orc with its eyes shut sat quietly before the treasury's doors. From afar, the orc looked just like a statue. I was wondering why no orcs came searching for me at the underground treasury after such a long time had passed. So there was still such a guard here. Shifeng could not help but frown as he looked at the armored orc while hiding in a dark corner of the corridor. Although the orc guarding the treasury was not very large, it could even be described as thin and old. Any player that crossed it at this stage of the game would definitely die. The reason for this was this orc being none other than the chieftain of a tribe. Orc Chieftain, humanoid creature, mythic. Level 85. HP 320, 000, 000/320, 000, Against this monster, even a 100-man elite team of level 85 Tier 2 players would be annihilated. Shifeng knew this because he had led a team to raid an orc chieftain before, except that he had already been promoted into a Tier 3 Sword King back then. In terms of strength, the Orc Chieftain was much more powerful than the 3 mythic ranked orcs that had charged out of the city. Moreover, its intellect could rival even that of an NPC. It was like a sage among orcs. Even a 1,000-man elite team of the same level would wipe unless they had a tool that could target the Orc Chieftain's weakness. Just as Shifeng was thinking about how to get past the Orc Chieftain, he suddenly heard footsteps coming from behind him. Moreover, the sound was also growing louder. Chapter 1368, Mythic Orc. Chapter 1368, Mythic Orc. Upon hearing the footsteps, Shifeng instinctively activated Omniscient Eyes. Immediately, he could see everything happening within 100 yards. A patrol squad. With Omniscient Eyes perception, he sensed a group of 6 level 85 orc warriors moving towards his position, every one of them a great lord. If not for the orc warriors having to disable the various traps, they would have long since reached his position. After watching the orc warriors disable the traps one after another, Shifeng made a rough estimate. His guess was that these orc warriors needed roughly 20 seconds to disable each trap, which meant they would take a maximum of only 3 minutes to reach him. Moreover, the corridor leading to the treasury did not have any forks. Once the patrol squad disabled the traps and entered the corridor, he would have nowhere to hide. The security here is really tight. It seems I can only give that thing a shot. Shifeng shifted his gaze to the orc chieftain resting before the treasury. Now that his goal was already before him, there was no way he would simply retreat without doing anything. Besides, these orcs were highly intelligent. Who knew what sort of changes would occur on his next attempt at entering this place? Also, judging by the earlier sight of orcs continuously entering the city gates, he could tell that the number of orcs in the ancient city would most likely become even more frightening in the future. Following which, Shifeng took out a Summon Guard scroll from his bag and summoned Anna. He then took out the Bible of Darkness and summoned a Tier 3 demon. Although a level 64 Tier 3 demon was no different from a fly to a level 85 mythic ranked orc, right now every second counted. When he had visited the Orc Palace in his previous life, there had been no orc chieftain defending the treasury. However, there had been a magic barrier, and the toughness of this magic barrier could even rival the magic array protecting White River City. Even Tier 4 mythic monsters would be helpless against it. In order to enter it, players needed to use 1 mana stone to disable the barrier temporarily. While he had already prepared the mana stone required, disabling the magic barrier was time-consuming. To be precise, it took 30 seconds to disable the barrier. 30 seconds might not be a long time, but surviving against a level 85 mythic orc for 30 seconds would be an extremely challenging feat for Shifeng's current self to accomplish. After Anna appeared, she summoned 10 level 75 Rock Guardians and 1 level 75 Great Lord ranked Golden Giant. Although these summoned creatures were nothing in the face of the Orc Chieftain, they could buy him some time. Good. Let's begin. Shifeng commanded. Anna promptly controlled the Golden Giant to dash forward, the Great Lord making the ground shudder as it ran. Almost immediately, the Orc Chieftain, who was still over 200 yards away from the Golden Giant, discovered the Great Lord's presence. Upon opening its eyes, the Orc Chieftain gave the Golden Giant a look of contempt. In the next moment, a wave of crimson energy flooded out into the surroundings from the Orc Chieftain's body. The instant this energy wave enveloped the Golden Giant's movements turned sluggish as if the Great Lord had just run into a muddy swamp. Even its basic attributes fell by 20%. Impossible. An orc has actually grasped a Tier 4 domain. Shifeng was shocked when he saw the crimson domain that had formed around the Orc Chieftain. Even Tier 4 NPCs would not necessarily possess a Tier 4 domain skill. Any monster or NPC that managed to grasp a Tier 4 domain would have their strength categorized as Tier 4 peak. Unless one had a sufficiently powerful magic array, defeating such monsters and NPCs was practically impossible for player teams below Tier 4. After all, not only could a domain suppress its user's enemies, but it could also strengthen its user. Unless one possessed a domain of their own to serve as a counter or had overwhelming power, they would definitely be killed. Although the Orc Chieftain's domain was not very powerful and had a range of only 200 yards, even a 1,000-man elite team would not be able to defeat it without the aid of an advanced magic array suppression. The golden giant had only crossed a distance of 10 yards or so when the orc chieftain already appeared before it. In terms of size, the orc chieftain looked no different from an infant as it stood before the golden giant. However, when the golden giant, a strength-based great lord, sent a punch at the orc chieftain, the latter easily stopped the blow with just one hand. In the next moment, too lazy to even use its weapon, the orc chieftain countered with a punch of its own at the golden giant's body. Along with a loud boom, a strong gust of wind enveloped the entire hall as the golden giant went flying over 30 yards. Its body got embedded deep inside a wall while its HP instantly plummeted over 1 million as well. The orc chieftain's strength surprised even Shi Feng. Whether it was in terms of speed or strength, the orc chieftain was simply not an opponent that players at this stage of the game could go up against. Just one attack would be more than enough to kill a tier 2 metric tons of the same level with their life-saving skill activated. The orc chieftain was an existence that was far superior even to the evil earth dragons that appeared during the siege war. When the orc chieftain appeared before the golden giant once more and was about to swing its fist at the great lord again, Anna quickly had the 10 rock guardians rush forward and form a magic barrier, trapping the orc chieftain in it. Unless the orc chieftain killed the rock guardians, it would not be able to escape the barrier. Meanwhile, with the barrier activated, not only did the rock guardians' basic attributes increase, but the damage they received would also be shared equally among themselves. Hence, it would take the orc chieftain some time to whittle down the rock guardians' combined HP of over 200 million. Good. Seeing the orc chieftain trapped, Shi Feng activated Wind Rider and dashed towards the doors of the treasury without hesitation. Despicable thief. The orc chieftain immediately noticed Shi Feng approaching the treasury's doors, the originally playful look on its face turning serious. It then retrieved the greatsword slung on its back and sent a fierce slash at the magic barrier. The orc chieftain's slash opened a crack in the magic barrier, nearly slicing the barrier in two. For a moment, Shi Feng even thought that the magic barrier would fail to contain the orc chieftain. Fortunately, the orc chieftain's attack did not reach the magic barrier's shattering limit, and the barrier mended itself rapidly by absorbing a portion of the rock guardian's HPs. However, in the blink of an eye, each rock guardian lost over 100,000 HP. After seeing its first attack fail, the orc chieftain shifted its target from the magic barrier itself to one of the rock guardians. Scorching flames enveloping its greatsword, the orc chieftain swung the weapon down on its new target. Immediately, every one of the Lord-ranked rock guardians lost over 300,000 HP. Their destruction was only a matter of time. As for the golden giant, that was similarly trapped inside the magic barrier. Although it tried to interfere with the orc chieftain's attacks, the latter paid no attention to the golden giant whatsoever. The orc chieftain simply focused on attacking the rock guardians, chipping away at their HP. Moreover, the rate at which the rock guardians were losing HP kept rising. Quick. Move quickly. After arriving before the treasury's doors and starting the disabling process for the magic barrier, Shi Feng could not help but grow anxious as he looked at the loading bar that appeared before him. At the rate at which the orc chieftain was dealing damage, the rock guardians would die in less than 30 seconds. Meanwhile, while Shi Feng was disabling the magic barrier, he could not suffer any interruption at all. As long as he came under attack or tried using a skill or tool, he would have to start the disabling process all over again. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds. When 2/3 of the loading bar was filled up, the sound of an explosion entered Shi Feng's ears. All 10 rock guardians were annihilated. Moreover, right now the orc chieftain's body was covered in flames. It was obvious that the orc chieftain was no longer pulling its punches. Letting out an angry roar, the orc chieftain dashed straight at Shi Feng. Gnashing his teeth, Shi Feng shouted, "Anna!" Just in time, Anna finished chanting the last verse of her incantation. In the next moment, a golden magic array formed at the ceiling of the hall. A silver-armored Valkyrie then appeared covering Shi Feng's back. Chapter 1369, Empire's Rise. Chapter 1369 Empire's Rise. Angel Summoning. This was the strongest trump card Shi Feng could use right now. Although he knew that the 10 rock guardians couldn't hold off a mythic-ranked orc for long, he hadn't expected them to die so quickly. Only 22 seconds had passed since he had started the disabling process. To make matters worse, he wasn't allowed to receive damage or use skills to defend himself. Doing so would reset the disabling process. Human, you have angered me. You dare come and steal the king's treasure? You will pay for this transgression with your life. The orc chieftain's wrathful bellow echoed throughout the hall, shaking the very stone. The orc chieftain's eyes were bloodshot, and its muscles had expanded significantly. Flames danced across its body. As a result, when it dashed toward Shi Feng, it looked like a flying meteor. Even with over 100 yards between them, Shi Feng couldn't help but shudder when he felt the orc chieftain's violent killing intent wrap around him. Since he was so close to disabling the magic barrier, the orc chieftain had entered its berserk state, both its strength and speed receiving significant buffs. Although Anna could summon a Tier 4 Valkyrie, she was only level 75. The Valkyrie she summoned would be the same level. A level 75 Valkyrie was already at a disadvantage against a level 85 Mythic Orc, not to mention while that Mythic Orc was in a berserk state. As the loading bar was nearly full, the orc chieftain stood less than 30 yards away from Shi Feng. "Turn to dust," the orc chieftain shouted as it swung its greatsword, the flames around the weapon descending on Shi Feng. The Valkyrie finally moved as the flaming pillar was about to smash into Shi Feng. Before anyone noticed, a golden lightning spear had appeared in the Valkyrie's hand, and she threw the lightning spear at the flaming pillar. Boom! As the lightning spear left the Valkyrie's hand, a thundering boom echoed throughout the hall. The instant the spear encountered the pillar of fire, the flames scattered as the lightning spear continued towards the orc chieftain. However, despite the lightning spear's astonishing speed, moving so fast that even Shi Feng didn't have time to react, the orc chieftain struck the incoming spear down with its greatsword, diverting the attack trajectory. Boom! When spear and greatsword collided, brilliant sparks scattered around the impact. The resulting shockwave of the collision was so powerful that even Shi Feng, who was quite far away from the orc chieftain, felt it. Following which, the orc chieftain, who was in a berserk state, flew over 20 yards backward, fear surfacing on its face as it stared at the Valkyrie. So strong. Shi Feng gaped at the scene. Although he knew that the Valkyrie was quite strong due to being a member of the angel race, he had never expected her to overwhelm a mythic monster with a Tier 4 domain. Furthermore, the Valkyrie was 10 levels below the orc chieftain. If not for angel summoning's 10-second duration, the Valkyrie might even kill the chieftain. Shi Feng's excitement grew as he thought about killing a level 85 Tier 4 peak monster. If he killed the orc chieftain, he could obtain loot that was even more extraordinary than what ordinary mythic monsters dropped. After all, every Tier 4 peak monster was an overlord in God's domain. Every one of these creatures' deaths would send tremors throughout God's domain. After landing her first attack, the Valkyrie's wings trembled slightly. In the blink of an eye, she arrived before the orc chieftain wielding another golden lightning spear. This time, she thrust the spear forward, moving so fast that even Shi Feng's eyes couldn't keep up. However, the orc chieftain wasn't fazed as he took a step forward and met the spear with his greatsword. In an instant, the Valkyrie and orc chieftain exchanged several blows, the two Tier 4 existences filling the hall with lightning and fire. The battle's residual power alone prevented anyone from approaching. However, the numerous exchanges pushed the orc chieftain back, one step after another, increasing the distance between him and Shi Feng. Shi Feng released a sigh of relief as the Valkyrie suppressed the orc chieftain. In the meantime, the loading bar gradually continued to fill. When the loading bar was full, the magic barrier protecting the treasury disappeared. Damnable human. Seeing the magic barrier vanish, the orc chieftain's eyes turned bloodshot as he glared hatefully at Shi Feng. Die. Suddenly, the hall's mana grew violent as a gray threefold magic array formed at the tip of the orc chieftain's greatsword. The crimson flames dancing over the weapon also faded to a dark gray, radiating a deathly aura that even Shi Feng was wary of. Suddenly, the orc chieftain swung its greatsword in Shi Feng's direction 9 times, sending 9 gray fire pythons towards the swordsman. Although the Valkyrie tried to block the attacks with her lightning spears, she could only toss 7 spears in a single breath, striking down 7 fire pythons. The remaining 2 continued towards Shi Feng unhindered. Watching the 2 fire pythons approach, Shi Feng did not dare to be careless as he activated absolute defense while trying to open the doors before him. Although the treasury doors were massive, Shi Feng pulled one open without much force. Although the gray fire had wrapped around him, they couldn't do any harm. Success. Shi Feng was ecstatic. The orc chieftain watched helplessly as Shi Feng disappeared into the treasury with Anna at his heels. The treasury contained a teleportation array connected to a special space. The special space was similar to a dungeon. Once players entered, monsters and players outside wouldn't be able to reach them. Upon entering the treasury, Shi Feng stood before a large, golden shrine. Various treasures had been put on display inside the shrine, and every one of these items was extremely valuable to current players. It's here. Shi Feng was elated to see the pitch-black war axe inside one of the shrine's magic crystal pillars. The war axe inside the magic crystal pillar was none other than the disintegration axe, the weapon which had once belonged to the Orc Empire's founding emperor. Legend had it that this axe possessed boundless power, and a single hit could destroy a city. The disintegration axe had been the reason the Orc Empire had prospered and been feared by God's domain's various empires. However, for some unknown reason, the disintegration axe had been shattered, resulting in the Orc Empire's eventual downfall. The disintegration axe before him was merely one of the larger fragments. Although the disintegration axe's fragment was right before him, Shi Feng didn't hurry to grab it. Instead, he slowly checked the shrine's other treasures. If the Orc Palace's treasury were a unique dungeon, then these treasures were its loot. Only while some of the items on display were available in unlimited quantities, some items would disappear forever once they were claimed. However, whether or not players could claim these items would depend on their abilities. Every team that entered the palace treasury only had 2 chances to pick an item. The higher quality the items they chose were, the stronger their opponent would be. Only after killing these monsters would players be granted their chosen item. After the 2 attempts, players would have to wait 5 days before re-entering the treasury. Shi Feng had long since familiarized himself with the monsters that could appear in the treasury, including their level of difficulty. Only he wasn't sure if his quest would trigger any changes. After confirming the disintegration axe's location, the sound of a system notification reached his ears as he scanned through the nearby items. System announcement: a player has triggered the new expansion pack, Empire's Rise. The system will undergo an update. The estimated duration is 10 hours. Please prepare to log out. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.